3, 2, 1.
There's a parallel universe there that separates us from all we perceive. True reality. Open the gate, let the truth be known. It's more than meets the eye, we're not alone. Into the paranormal. Into the paranormal. Into the paranormal. Crossover.
When the lights go down and the clock ticks close to the witching hour, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, enter at your own risk into the Paranormal. Dead air.
Oh, hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure what that was. A little bit of interference, but, we have a full moon and anything can happen tonight on this All Hallows Eve. I greet you on the first time we've ever done the program on Halloween. I can't believe that we've never done the program. It just hasn't ever fallen on a Saturday night. At least not since 7 years ago. I started this program in 2015, so here we are together, All Hallows Eve, spending 4 hours together, a program that we're calling Dead Air tonight. Now, it's Halloween. Everybody loves a spooky, scary story on Halloween, right? It's so cool. And especially this year, with more folks than ever at home seeking something to do, I'm so excited under a full moon tonight what might happen on the program. There hasn't been a full moon but once in my lifetime, and there may only be one or two more, depending on how lucky I am. But the next one's not going to come for another 19 years or so. So here we are under a full moon on Halloween night, All Hallows Eve, talking about encounters with the departed, about the deceased, about spirits, about haunted attractions, about haunted objects. And so I want to give out the number just for anybody who would like to join us tonight on All Hallows Eve. It is 855-790-8255, toll-free in North America, or 503-506-0396 outside North America. And on Skype, you can get in at ITP51. If you've got a scary, spooky story, we want to hear it. There's all sorts of things that can carry the energy. So there's this energy that exists, and it can happen in almost anything, I suppose, from everything that I've been able to gather. I don't think there is anything that is immune from being haunted. Some of the most haunted objects in the world include things like chairs and mirrors, vases that you put flowers in, furniture items, chests, bunk beds, all sorts of things. Anything really can be haunted. A couple of years ago, we talked about reflections that people see in a television screen or in a microwave as you're getting together in the morning or whatnot, and you're using the microwave and you're sitting there waiting, or it's at night and you're cooking up some microwave popcorn, and you're sitting there just waiting for molasses to churn. You might see a reflection in the microwave, in the stove, any sort of kitchen household object. People have seen that definitely in televisions while they're watching shows, and also while the television is off. And of course, we've heard time and again stories of objects that have just turned themselves on. You unplug the power, and that doesn't seem to stop the activity from occurring. A year ago or so, I was sitting here, and I could, for the life of me, could not get this DVD player from opening and closing. It could have been, just a jammed a mechanism, but it was acting very, very odd. I posted that up on YouTube. It was a while ago. But things like that, people experience, and I've been reading a book lately which brought up something that I was going to actually talk about, and so maybe I'll ask you, friends here, have you seen something, and we can define the something, but have you seen something in the mirror as you're sitting there getting ready in the morning, women doing your makeup, guys getting your shave on, everyone brushing our teeth, that sort of things, everything that we do in front of a mirror in the morning, or maybe you're stepping out of the shower, and it could be light, it could be dark. At any of those moments, have you seen anything in the mirror, whether full on or out of the corner of your eye, or has anything been observed by any members of my audience? I would be interested in that because there is a history, and it's 855-790-8255, toll-free in North America, or 503-506-0396 outside North America, and ITP 51 on Skype, particularly reflective services. I have been told, and the ancient Romans actually believed, that things such as mirrors or anything reflective like I mentioned televisions or microwaves, stoves, especially the glass ones that, glare, anything that has some sort of reflection. And that this actually helps to reflect souls of the departed, I guess you could say. And, there's even a practice going back centuries of covering up mirrors in houses where a loved one is dying, and there's superstition that goes along with that as well. Some say that the dead actually get confused and then pass into the mirror instead of the other worldly realm that they were intended to go to after death. This is not just a fixation of mine or of a few people with something like a mirror reflective surface. The Victorians used heavy black cloth on mirrors in the homes of people who were deceased. And you know the movie Mirrors, right, with Kiefer Sutherland. What did they do there? They tried to cover up the mirrors as well because there is something to that surface. You're basically invoking something that is, I guess, there already around you, but it needs a way to manifest, right? It's energy. So you give it a way to manifest. In the movie Mirrors, it even manifested in the water through the reflection in the water. There's just something about how it hits the human eye. So I'm just wondering if any of you have had an encounter. Have you seen anything in the mirror? Anything strange? Anything that's made you jump or want to bring your spouse with you next time you went to the bathroom? Because it's no doubt in my mind that people do actually see this stuff. Are more people seeing this stuff? That seems to be up for debate. Are more people seeing haunted activity in their homes now in the pandemic here? Because here we are in the first Halloween of a pandemic. We don't know how many Halloweens we're going to be under this pandemic, but here we are. And it could be a situation where people just are going crazy, stir crazy or whatnot, or literally crazy from being cooped up and from not being able to go about their daily lives, at least how they're used to. And are they hallucinating? That's a possibility. People could be hallucinating and just believing that they're seeing something when they're not actually seeing something. They're dreaming it, or they're visualizing it because maybe they're ragged, they're low on sleep. Maybe they took many pain medications. Maybe they're just stressed out. There's a variety of reasons. But more people have apparently been reporting that they have been seeing weird stuff during the pandemic era that we're in. And I'm wondering how many of you in my audience are among them. I always like to look at what the people are saying and get a sense of how this is affecting people. And apparently 13% or so believe, of the 2,000 people that were surveyed in this poll that I'm going to discuss here for just a second here. 13% believe that they live in a home that is haunted. 54% of them actually knew that before they moved in. And 2/3 say that they'd actually be unlikely to consider living in a house that was rumored to be haunted had they known this prior. And a majority of Americans who believe that their home is haunted have not considered moving. So we have all sorts of mixed reactions here to living with some of this activity. Now, on the surface, when you think about living in a haunted place, we think, well, if it happens to me, I'm just gonna move out, and that doesn't necessarily ever solve anything. We know about residual hauntings, and we know about poltergeist activity, and we know about how some of this activity moves around and follows people from place to place. And we're not always just talking about, I saw a ghost. We're talking about seeing things like I talked about last week out of the corner of your eye. We're talking about the hot and cold spots. We're talking about the feel. You just get that sensation, that feel, the energy when you walk into a place. Pets behaving nuts. And pets behave nuts all the time, especially ours. And then things moving, which is not necessarily indicative that you have a ghost in your house. You may have misplaced it and just forgot about it, but for some people, items moving are an indication that there is something else at play here. The feeling of being touched, which is something that might just send me over the edge. I might be able to handle all of those other things, but being touched, I don't know if that would keep me there. So all of that in play here. If you want to have a ghost sighting and you're really interested in moving someplace to have a ghost sighting, you could go to Texas, because apparently Texas has the most ghost sightings of any state in America, as we have learned, according to the official documented numbers. Texas is first in number of ghostly encounters. In fact, Brad Bernards has some interesting thoughts on that in our fourth hour tonight, because he brings us paranormal news from Texas every week on the show. And Texas has more sightings than any other state. And then there's California. Texas and California, the top two states for seeing a ghost. So that's just what the numbers are showing as far as, when people report that they have seen a ghost. Other places would include, Memphis, Tennessee, Southern California, which are two places that we are going to head to tonight on our program, as we discuss some very haunted locations and about investigating haunted locations and about some of the history of these places and what may be at play here with some paranormal investigative teams who have investigated these sites. And just in case those of you who were wondering if we were going to play any sort of EVPs tonight on the program, otherwise known as electronic voice phenomena, it wouldn't be Halloween without EVPs. But that's not the reason that we're doing the program tonight. In fact, my first guests don't do it for the evidence. They do it to help those who are stuck in this realm, the realm between here and there, wherever there is. Heaven, hell, whatever the Mormons believe in, those three kingdoms, somewhere in between, wherever we go, there are some of these spirits who have a hard time making up their mind on whether they want to stick around in this realm and harass us, or whether they want to move on. And helping these spirits move on is one way that you can bring relief to an active haunted location. Just wishing it's going to go away, moving, burning in a Ouija board, whatever the case happens to be, burning incense, saying some prayer, those don't necessarily work. Trying to coax somebody or trying to persuade someone that there is hope for them in the next life, wherever that next life may be, and that it's okay for them to, cross over. And Johnny Cobb and Jerry McCoy, who sing our theme song, as they say, cross over. And there are many spirits who who have a hard time crossing over. And my first guest on the program tonight, when we come back after the break with Brad Bernards doing Paranormal News tonight, will be from Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, Stephen Williams, who is the founder and director of the group. He's going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about some of the activity that he has seen, some of the haunted locations that they have investigated, and not necessarily about the evidence, although we will touch on some of that, but about some of the spirits they've encountered, their history, and how they got to the location, why they're still at the location, why they haven't moved on, maybe what they're still here on this plane of existence, what they're hoping to accomplish, because there's something keeping them here. Otherwise, they would just go, like all the other people who pass on and seemingly don't hang around. There's something keeping these spirits here, and it may be that these are just the stubborn souls that just never believe they're actually dead. And if you don't believe you're dead, well, then I could see how that would be a dilemma for you. Because if you can't face the fact that you have kicked the bucket, then yeah, I wouldn't want to move on either. I would want to just hang out and see my friends and go on throughout my daily life. I wouldn't have to pay rent. I wouldn't have to pay for food. But see, if you know you're dead, you may have an easier time making that move, crossing over to the other side. And so, as I said tonight, it's bone-chilling accounts of departed souls on this All Hallows Eve. I'm Jeremy Scott, and we'll be back with more Dead Air coming up. From the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest, I'm Jeremy Scott.
Make sure to subscribe to Into the Paranormal's free YouTube channel for shows, news, and exclusive reports.
Abnormal News, I'm Brad Bernards. NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, or SOFIA, has confirmed for the first time water on the sunlit surface of the moon. This discovery indicates that water may be distributed across the lunar surface and not limited to cold, shadowed places.
The lunar environment is very, very harsh. And so for water to exist on the moon is a pretty spectacular finding, but for life to exist, it would be extremely difficult.
Dr. Casey Hannibal of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, courtesy NBC's Today Show. SOFIA has detected water molecules in Clavius Crater, one of the largest craters visible from Earth, located in the moon's southern hemisphere. The discovery raises new questions about how water is created and how it persists on the harsh, airless lunar surface. Halloween may look different this year due to COVID-19 restrictions, but we have a cool, spooky spectacle to look forward to, a rare second-in-the-month full moon to cap off a month of glorious skywatching, according to CNET.com.
What makes Halloween even spookier this year? Well, we have a full moon on Halloween, which is the first full moon on Halloween that we've had in a while, and we're not going to see another one for at least almost 20 years.
That's courtesy PAHomepage.com. The full moon that is visible tonight is called the blue moon because it's the second full moon of the same month following the harvest moon of October 1st through October 3rd. And in a rare treat, the 2020 Halloween full moon will be visible to the entire world rather than just parts of it for the first time since World War II. There's more news at parabnormalradio.com. Wishing you a scary Halloween, I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Wait a minute. You're dead. You've been dead for 30 years.
32, Hiram, baby.
Many parents who think they can see ghosts, specters, and mysterious movements on their advanced baby monitors. Some parents describe blurry humanoid figures. Others say they see floating white orbs.
When we go to sleep, the teddy bear are here to play. If you don't come play with us, then we will kill you.
I felt like something was near me, kind of an eerie feeling.
Dead air. Dead air. Dead air.
I'm Jeremy Scott on this All Hallows Eve. And it's so good to be with you here. Bone-chilling encounters with the departed, with the dead, on this program tonight. I do want to take a call because we have a call coming in. And so let's go to, I believe, the Bay Area. Hello, you're on Dead Air. Who's this?
Oh, hello. I didn't realize I called in.
Well, that's okay.
I can listen to the show.
You are alive and well and above the grave.
Yes.
Well, that's good. So you're not.
I talk to people.
Because it would be really weird if a ghost called into the show.
So what do we do? What you want me to ask a question?
Sure. Have you ever seen a ghost?
Yes.
You have seen a ghost?
I have.
When was this?
I've talked to them, too.
You've talked to a ghost as well. How did that conversation go?
Well, it's ongoing.
Oh, so you have ongoing contact with a ghost?
Well, I wouldn't call it a ghost.
What would you call it, ma'am?
A higher being, a higher vibrational frequency than a ghost would be more of your earthbound.
Okay. So this is not a full body apparition.
I have had full body apparitions before, and not just was a person; it could be an animal as well.
How did that make you feel?
Well, the first time it happened, I had a dog following me for a couple of weeks, and I thought, "Oh, this is really interesting." And then once I figured out whose dog it was, then and the dog went away. It was more like connecting me with someone else. And once I realized that this dog would be theirs, then the dog faded away. I kind of thought at first it was going to be my new dog, because my dog had passed away. So it was kind of exciting. I thought, oh, I think my new dog's coming into my life, and this was an apparition telling me this. But it ended up being someone else's dog, which was okay. It kind of confirmed the relationship I would have with that person.
Well, that's very interesting. I thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
I want to welcome to the program tonight Stephen Williams, who's a paranormal investigator who's been investigating reports of paranormal activity and hauntings in Memphis, Tennessee, and around the U.S. for 18 years. He's been involved in spirit rescue work for the past 13 years. Stephen was a former member of the Ghost Stalkers of West Tennessee from 2002 to 2006. and the Memphis Mid-South Ghost Hunters from 2006 to 2016. Currently, he directs Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, which he founded in October 2018. Stephen is an energy channel and is learning how to improve his natural mediumship abilities. He is writing a book about his experiences that he plans to publish early next year. I want to welcome Stephen on this Halloween night to the program. How are you?
Hey, Jeremy, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
It's my pleasure. Are you dressed up on this Halloween night?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just kind of chilling out here.
Is this the first Halloween ever that you have not dressed up, or are you not one of those people that just doesn't dress up, period?
I don't usually dress up. No, usually I'm out in the field, in someone's home doing the work or at some type of event. So, no, I rarely ever dress up anymore.
So, Stephen, tell us about your abilities, because they come into play in some of these places that you investigate that are known to be haunted.
Correct. Yes. Well, when I started in the work about 18 years ago, I really wasn't aware that I had these abilities to detect and connect with spirits intuitively. And about 5 years into the work, I was in a haunted location. I was in the slave quarters of an antebellum home in a town east of Memphis, and I started to feel felt like a tingling sensation, almost like there were ants marching on the top of my head. And what it was I was interacting with the spirit energies that were there, and it kind of manifests as a tingling type sensation around my crown chakra. And by working with different mediums over the years, I worked with almost a dozen different mediums. I've learned that if I feel that sensation on one side, it's masculine, the other side is feminine, and it's kind of a gauge of the vibration of the spirit energy that we're working with. So I can tell if someone is earthbound type spirit or someone's crossed over. Also can feel the energy of higher vibrational beings like angelics and so forth. So it's almost like I'm kind of a human K2 meter in a sense, and it comes in very handy.
So you are able to tell if a spirit has crossed over and then they just come back and hang out here, or if they need some help being persuaded to go to the other side.
Correct. Yeah, actually, I was in a house last night in Jackson, Tennessee, which is about 60 miles east of Memphis. We were called there, got a request for help actually on Thursday, and had an open night. So I went over there. My partner, Kayla Bales, was not available, but we have a friend here in the Memphis area named Stevie Monty Smith, who's a young developing medium. So he and I went there, and we connected with 2 earthbound spirits in that house and helped them to transition, release and transition. And then we also, as we were actually driving to the location about 30 minutes out, which is about 30 miles from the site, we had 2 spirit energies come to us, and that happens quite often. And one of them was a family member, a young lady who had met a tragic end, and she revealed her name to us. And when we got to the client, we shared that information, and of course she knew who that was. And the other one was a probably like an ancestor type spirit of this, the homeowner of this place. She has some Native American background, so the other energy was a Native American high vibrational energy. So we were able to share all that information with her, and she validated what we were picking up on. And then we worked with those 2 spirits who were at the house and did some counseling. We were able to help them to release and transition.
Did you have an encounter that got you, on this path, Stephen, or how did that work for you?
No, it was just a ghost tour I went on back in 2002 down in St. Augustine, Florida. I was on a family vacation and saw they had a ghost tour there. Didn't know anything about any of this, and this was before TAPS had their show taken on, on Sci-Fi. So there wasn't really a whole lot of information out there. And I took some pictures on that ghost tour. I came back to Memphis, found 2 ladies who had a website up, sent those pictures to them. They debunked them, actually. But it made me very intrigued, and I just started going out on my own and bought an audio recorder. Ended up recording some EVPs, and those ladies invited me to go with them, and we started doing some residential work. So that's how I started.
What was the first home you went into?
The first house residence that we went into was a very disturbing situation. There had been a person there who was a child molester, and he had actually committed suicide on the front porch of the house with a shotgun. And his energy was definitely there. And we had a medium that was working with us at the time, and she was able to verify that. In the beginning, I really didn't, I wasn't introduced to spirit rescue until about 2007. So early on, our focus was on the collection of evidence. You know, we would go in and take a lot of equipment in and try to prove that there was actually something taking place at a residence. But over time, you know, you get that information and you share it with the homeowner who probably already understands and believes that something's going on there anyway. It does validate that for them, but it really doesn't affect any kind of positive change. So when someone goes in and does that evidence collection and does a reveal and presents that information, and then they leave, and the homeowner or the business owner still has all that activity taking place and, you know, disturbs their lives. So that's what we try to do. We try to do the counseling with the spirits who are there and help them to understand they have options. It's their choice whether or not they want to move on and to move into a higher awareness and a more productive existence. So we use our clairs, our clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentient abilities to make that happen.
Does that always work in your favor, using these abilities, Stephen?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I do take a couple of pieces of equipment with me. One is an audio recorder, so I always document every single investigation just so we have a record of it. And the other thing I take is an EMF meter because sometimes spirit energies will interact with that, and that's something, you know, the homeowners and business owners have seen all these TV shows, so what I usually do, we'll give that piece of equipment to that person. And the lady last night, she actually asked if she could carry that, and we allowed her to do that. We didn't have any interaction through the equipment. And the reason that that is kind of the norm now is that once I started working with mediums, I used to record a lot of EVPs. We do have some on our website. But once I started working with mediums and developed my own abilities, it just became a situation where if the spirit is there, they're going to always take the path of least resistance. So if there's someone there that can actually hear their thoughts and in a telepathic sense and get that information that way, they usually won't bother with equipment. So I just carry a minimal amount of equipment. Sometimes I'll use that EMF meter to check the wiring in a house and make sure there's nothing strange going on there, or sometimes there's power lines that are nearby or power sources that come into the house. And if someone's sleeping near one of those places where the power comes in, that can cause some problems of perception. So we always kind of try to rule all that out. But we rely exclusively on our intuitive abilities. We really do.
Dwayne wants to know, have you ever done any investigative work at Graceland?
Well, they do not allow people, as far as I know, to go in and do investigations. You know, it's a very private situation, although they do allow tours. So several years back, I have a friend named Linda from Jacksonville, Florida. She's a medium, and she came to town, and she was very interested in going to Graceland. And so we just took the tour, and of course, she is able to see and hear spirit energies, and I'm able to feel those energies. So we did have an encounter in the first room of that house. As soon as you walk into the house from the front porch, there's a room off to the right, and there's a big white piano in that room. And as soon as we walked into the house, I could feel this very high vibrational male spirit energy there close by. And I figured that was probably Elvis or, you know, someone in the family, maybe his father. And at that point, my friend Linda was standing next to me, And she kind of, we stood there just a few minutes, and she kind of collapsed into me. And I asked her, what was wrong? I didn't understand what had happened. And she said, well, he came up behind me and kissed me on the neck. And she was able to see him. And so he came up and greeted her. And I've talked to a lot of people who've worked at Graceland, at different time periods, and they've all had a lot of experiences, paranormal type of experiences there.
Tell us about some of the other locations you have investigated, and then we'll come back later on and talk about those, because I want to focus on your investigative method. But what are some of the other sites, briefly?
Oh, I've been in quite a few of the well-known sites outside of Memphis. I've been in the Thomas House over in Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee. That's, I think, Ghost Hunter guys went there, and maybe one of the other shows went there. I've been in the St. Augustine Lighthouse, actually connected with the lighthouse keeper while I was there. I've been in a lot of different locations in St. Augustine, Florida, St. Francis Inn, which has a well-known reputation of hauntings. And I've been in quite a few battlefields. Been in Andersonville, which was Fort Sumter. That was a notorious Confederate POW camp during the Civil War, and had some experiences there. I've been in the Myrtles. I spent the night in the Myrtles and connected with a gentleman there and a lady that was with him. We actually helped those two to cross over. And that was kind of a mass crossing type event, because once those two released, we had a lot of other spirits from nearby, from different locations, that came to that event. It's almost like there's a kind of a light portal that's created during certain crossings, and spirits can see that if they're nearby or they sense it. So yeah, I've been in a lot of different places. Crescent Hotel, mostly, in the central or southeast U.S.
And what is your focus when you go into an investigation?
Well, our goal is always to, number one, verify if they do have spirit activity there or not. And then once we establish that, we want to connect with whoever's there, do some counseling with them, try to discover why they're there, where they've come from. If sometimes they're family members who have already crossed over, that they'll create disturbances or do things like leave coins and feathers, which gets people's attention, like, where did this come from, that type of thing. And then they will call someone in like us who can actually deliver those messages that they want to get to their loved ones. So sometimes it's some mediumship. We actually, the young lady who came to us that was a family member, she had a message that she wanted to have us delivered to the homeowner last night, so we did that. But our goal is always to do the counseling and explain to any spirits that we encounter in these locations that they do have options. Now, it's their free will choice whether or not they want to take advantage of those options. But usually when we explain to them how easy it is for them to connect with their loved ones on the other side, they're almost always ready to release and transition. And that's good for them, of course, and it's also good for the homeowner or the business owner, because their lives return to normal and all the activity ceases. And it's a win-win situation for everyone involved.
Unless you have a negative encounter, and then that may not be a win-win situation, Stephen.
Well, occasionally there are spirits. We went into a house here in Memphis where there was a malevolent energy in there, would not listen to anything we had to say. That was definitely there to cause harm. He was actually at night was creating sensation of a pillow placed over the client's head where it felt like she was being smothered. And he had manifested as a dark form in different times and was causing a lot of problems. So, of course, we always go in a compassionate manner and try to explain to them, that they have these options. But if the spirit is there just to cause harm, then we have other ways to deal with that. We have some allies on the other side that we call in, and then it becomes kind of those allies' choice as to what needs to be done. So we just kind of leave it to them. But that's really very rare that we run into anything like that. Usually our work seems to be mostly with earthbound spirits who are just needing help. They're kind of lost, stuck, unsure about what to do. And it's almost like when they were supposed to catch the bus, they missed the bus. And they just don't understand, why these people are in their home, these people that they don't recognize. And there's all kinds of different reasons why they stick around. But we feel like since we have these abilities, it's our responsibility to at least explain these options to them and try to help them if they want to make that transition.
And we'll get into the ways that you help them do that. From Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, my guest, Stephen Williams. I'm Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest.
Stay tuned for Paranormal News with Brad Bernard, only on Into the Paranormal. COVID quarantine bunker, it's Jeremy Scott, traveling somewhere between abnormal and paranormal.
It is Dead Air, and I'm Jeremy Scott. Stephen Williams, my guest, Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. And I want to get into their method of investigation. It's not so much, Stephen, that you go into a location and you come out with copious amounts of evidence and that you put sensational videos up on a YouTube channel and that you post audio on your website. It's not about that. It's about getting these spirits that need help. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is the method that we use, typically in the early days when I was more equipment based, we might go into a location and spend 3 or 4 or 5 hours, sometimes up into the wee hours of the morning, just sitting around waiting for something to happen. So that's all, when you have these abilities and you're able to walk in, you're able to detect intuitively which areas of a location there are spirit energies, and then to establish communication with them immediately and get a dialogue going back and forth and get that information coming out, really quickly. You don't have to spend hours and hours. Typically, we're only in a location 1 to 2 hours. Last night we were there 2 hours because the lady that we were working with was very intuitive, and she'd had a lot of experiences. So I think we spent about an hour doing our counseling work and helping the two spirits there to transition. And then we just sat down with her for about an hour and just let her ask questions and recommended some books that would help her learn how to manage her own abilities to where she's not attracting spirits into her, into her life all the time. So not only do we counsel the spirits that we encounter, but we also do a lot of counseling with homeowners to explain to them, how they can work with gifts if they want to, if they've awakened to clairvoyance or clairaudience, or how they can learn how to shut that off if they, don't want to work with it at all. So it's kind of multi-level.
Did you receive validation that you were at least somewhat successful in helping those spirits move on?
Yeah, we did. What we always do at the very end, after we do our counseling work and we work with the spirits and help them to release, then we do a vibrational clearing. A lot of people do it the traditional way. They'll smudge and that type of thing. And I did that early on, but what I learned was that is more of a temporary type solution. And so I was guided to use a vibrational technique, which involves sound and crystals and so forth. And it's very effective, and it pretty much neutralizes any heavy energies in a location. And so after we do that, that's the final step. That usually takes, 10 or 15 minutes to go through an entire location and clear it like that. And then we invite the homeowner to go with us, and they can always tell that there's a huge difference in the vibration in the space. And usually they comment that everything feels a lot lighter, that all that heaviness that they were experiencing has vanished. And then I always check back with them within a week or so to make sure that, all the activity has ceased. And usually I would say about 99% of the time that is the case. Sometimes if we're working with intuitive individuals, sometimes they will attract spirits in again. We had that happen down in Mississippi. We were working with a young lady and went to her house, and there were 2 spirits in that house that we helped to release. And then we got a check back with her, and everything was good. And then about a week later, she texted me and said, well, we've got some more things going on. And that was just so unusual. I said, well, we'll come back and we'll see what's going on. And what had happened was she had attracted 2 child spirits, a brother and a sister, young kids, probably from her children's school or from that area. And so we worked with those 2 and helped them to release. And since then, she's had no issues at all. So we always check back and verify, make sure everything's okay. And we have a lot of testimonials on our website, and those are usually they usually come in about that time. We ask if they would like to share their experiences. We'd like to share that on our website, so we get a lot of testimonials.
And because of your method, you don't need a lot of those fancy gadgets like, the spirit boxes and EMF meters and everything else that we see, the fancy TV ghost investigative teams using?
Yeah, we're basically the spirit boxes. So we get that dialogue going back and forth. My partner, Kayla Bales, is very gifted clairvoyant, clairaudient medium, which means that she can hear those thought transmissions and can see the spirit very clearly in her mind's eye. I sometimes am able to tap into that, but my strong suit is really that clairsentient ability, where I can feel their energy and distinguish their vibrational level and also their gender. And I get a sense sometimes of their age. Last night, the young lady who came to us that was crossed over, that came to us way before we ever got to the location, I kept hearing her say ginger. So that was a thought I was getting, okay, like a telepathic type thought. And I just kind of filed it away. And then I asked Stevie, who was riding with me, I said, are you feeling her? And do you pick up anything? And he said, yeah, I'm hearing the name. And he said the name. And so when we got there, it was very obvious that the spirit had come with us or was there at that location and wanted to get this message to her family member. And so I asked Stevie to just deliver the message and tell the lady the name that he had gotten. And she immediately she broke out in tears because she knew exactly who it was. I didn't mention that word that I'd heard until the very end. And I asked the client as we were leaving, I said, well, what did this family member look like? What color hair did she have? And she said, well, she had kind of reddish hair. And to me, ginger always brings that to mind. So I think that's why she used that word to describe herself. So a lot of times we'll get clues like that as to who it is, or we actually get the name or close to the name, that type of thing. Last night was just dead on.
Okay, so fresh on your mind was the investigation you did 24 hours ago. Were you able to sense, the energy in that location?
Yes, there were, like I said, there were two earthbound spirits. There was a gentleman who was back in one bed. It was a small house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house built in 1921. The client had only lived there about a year and a half, but she had had experiences all her life. And her question, when she first contacted me, her comment was, "I think someone has followed me." But actually what had happened was she had moved into this house, and there was an older lady there. We determined that which bedroom was likely her bedroom when she had lived there. And that was the front bedroom of the house. There was also, it felt like an energy vortex or type portal type energy thing going on in there. And they had all experienced that too. You could actually walk into this one little area in that room, and it felt like you were drunk or the floor was moving. And we both experienced that, and they both said, after we explained that to them, they said, "Yeah, we've always felt that ever since we moved in here." So we're able to close those types of energy portals, and they verified that as we did our final walkthrough. But that lady was mostly, her energy was concentrated in that front bedroom and also in the kitchen. The gentleman was in a back bedroom, and the reason he was back there was he was a friend of the homeowner, of the client, who had passed. So they had a relationship, and so he was. I think there was a lot of grieving going on, and sometimes, in my experience, when people grieve a loved one, a friend or a loved one, family member, it holds those people there close until they feel like the grieving person has gone through that process. So we talked to that gentleman, explained to him that, he didn't really need to, he didn't have to stay there, and he could actually help his friend better if he went ahead and made that transition and became, his awareness became higher, I guess you'd say. So he accepted that. He went ahead and released. But it's just, it's his choice. If he decided he wanted to stay there in that earthbound condition, that would have been fine. He wasn't causing any harm or anything or any disruptions, but they were aware that he was there because he had actually spoken out loud a couple of times, or they had heard his voice.
How audibly?
Audibly, just like he was in the room. We didn't hear that, but they said they had, the client told us that she had heard the voice of her friend, and he just said, "Hey," one day. It came from the living room, so.
There's also a process that you go through with the homeowner or the business owner or whoever it is you're dealing with, whoever has called you to this location to get them, prepared for what it is you're about to do.
Yeah, we have some information on our website that kind of covers most of that. And we actually, when we get to the point where someone wants us to come to their home or business, we have an electronic legal permission form, and we have quite a few restrictions, I guess you'd say, or guidelines that we ask them to follow, certain things that we don't want. We don't want them smoking in the house before we get there and that type of thing. And so they understand they've got to, follow our guidelines and everything. And then they give us they sign this form electronically, because we would never, ever set foot on anyone's property without legal permission. And I highly discourage anybody out there who's paranormal investigating, in different sites, even in public sites, cemeteries, that type of thing. You better get permission, legal permission from whoever is managing that property, because you can run into some serious problems if you don't do that. So we always make sure everyone is on board with everything and they understand what we're going to do. The other thing we do is we do not want to know any specifics. So this lady contacted me and said that she felt like someone had been following her, and she wanted us to come and try to determine what was going on. So I asked her, I said, without telling me anything specific, have you experienced phenomena there? And she said, yes, we've heard voices, we've heard singing, we've been touched, this and that, that type of thing. So the reason we don't want any specifics is because we want to be able to go in without knowing if they have seen a child spirit, a female child spirit, or male child spirit, or have heard the voice which sounded like a man or a woman, that type of thing. We don't want to know that because we want to go in and validate their experiences without having any knowledge at all of what's occurred there. So we only ask for generalities, and then we, after we did our investigation, intuitively and went from room to room and determined where these energies were concentrated, and told them that we felt like there was an older lady, and they said, yes, we've heard her sing. We've heard what sounded like an older woman singing in the bathroom. So everything we determined and picked up intuitively, they validated. So that's the way we work. So in other words, instead of going in with equipment and waiting around for hours and hours for something to happen, or try to record voices and then go back and spend hours and hours reviewing those recordings and go back to the client and said, yeah, we heard a voice. It sounds like a woman. It sounds like she says this. We can go in within an hour or two and, connect with who's there, find out why they're there, where they've come from, and then help them to release. And that's a good thing for everybody. So it's not a long process.
Stephen, you mentioned one of your conditions is no smoking. Is that because it influences the spirits, or is that just as a sign of respect for the team?
That's because I'm sensitive to smoke. I just don't want to be in a situation where someone is smoking or has smoked recently. So
yeah, I hate this stuff too.
We have one team member who, she's no longer with us. She was a great team member. Her name was Jennifer Brooks, and she had some health concerns, and I think she had asthma, or she had some kind of breathing type condition that was, she was highly sensitive to smoke. So we have to protect ourselves as well as. The other thing is, sometimes you can go into a location and a spirit will, to show you who they are, they might manifest the smell of pipe tobacco, a pipe being smoked. So you want the environment to be as pristine as possible in terms of, you might just, with your normal five senses, you might, pick up on something like that.
Have you had cases, Stephen, where you could not resolve a situation peacefully? With the spirits, that is.
Yeah, that one I mentioned earlier, we actually had to call on assistance and have that spirit removed because he was definitely there to cause harm.
Did you bring in a minister or a pastor or somebody, exorcist or something like that?
I'm talking about spiritual allies on the other side. Yeah. So we work with some allies that help us in our the transition process. And I'm writing about all this in the guidebook that I'm going to publish. And the reason I'm doing this guidebook is because I think there are a lot of teams out there that might like to explore the possibility that they could do this work intuitively if they can learn how. Everybody, I think, has the potential and latent abilities that if they know how to bring those abilities out to where they can work with them. In my experience over doing this for 18 years, the first 5 years I did it primarily with equipment, and this is just so much more effective doing it intuitively. I know there are a lot of groups out there now that do work with mediums, and as I was writing my book, I was looking for some historical information on spirit rescue and so forth, and I actually found a video on YouTube of Hans Holzer, and he was, I think, on the first season of In Search Of. You can find this on YouTube. And he, the episode that where they're showing him, he goes into a location with a medium, very gifted medium. I can't remember the lady's name now, and it was up in New England somewhere. So they go into this house, and this lady sits down. And he starts, she says, well, I'm seeing a woman here. She's at the window. She's looking out the window. And Hans Holzer starts directing her with a lot of these questions, and she gets all this information intuitively. Of course, he's recording it or writing it down. He goes to the town historian, and it all checks out. But at the end of it, they do a spirit rescue, and they help the lady to release and transition. So there was actually spirit rescue being shown on television like 42 years ago. But instead of going down that path, people went down a more equipment-based path, and that's what you pretty much see on television. You might see a medium here or there. But that blew my mind when I saw that. That was quite amazing. And I think Hans Holzer was labeled kind of as a nut back in the day because he was working with mediums, That was so unusual. And I guess people didn't understand it. It's become a lot more mainstream now. You have a lot of television shows with mediums and so forth on them.
Describe in the 2 minutes that we have before our break, Stephen, about this vibrational bridge between the lower and the higher frequencies and how that comes into play in the spirit rescue process.
Right. Well, we're energy channels. We're all energy workers, so we know how to direct that energy, and sometimes that's very helpful when you come across a spirit who is kind of stuck in a mental loop. Maybe the last thought they have was, the house was on fire. We came across a girl in a closet one time like that. And by directing this energy to them, we're able to help them, their awareness become less cloudy to where we're actually able to get a dialogue going with them. But the vibrational bridge, which you refer to, that's actually a process I'm going to describe in my book and how we work with spiritual allies on the other side to facilitate that. But we're kind of the go-between between the earthbound spirit and their loved ones on the other side who have already transitioned and are at a higher vibration. So it's kind of an awareness thing.
Are there any other points as far as the spirit rescue process that you'd like to make here quickly, Stephen?
No. There is another thing that we do here. We do spirit rescue circles where we get a group of intuitives together and actually do over a 1 or 2 hour period, we might call in a lot of spirits in our area or make ourselves available to help them transition. And that's something that the English have done for a long time. I met an English medium named Audrey Abernathy who introduced me to that. And so that's something that I'll also cover in this book and explain to people how you can do that and actually help a lot of spirits in a certain location to make that transition.
And we'll continue on this dead air broadcast All Hallows Eve. I'm Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest. My guest is the founder and director of Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, Stephen Williams. I'm Jeremy Scott. Paranormal News with Brad Bernards is next.
Want to chat with like-minded thinkers? Join Into the Paranormal Facebook group. It'll blow your mind.
Parabnormal News. I'm Brad Bernards. On the night of January 16th, 2018, a fireball meteor streaked across the sky over the Midwest and Ontario before landing on a frozen lake in Michigan.
In Michigan, residents were left shaken when they saw the sky light up before hearing a loud boom.
That's courtesy RT America. Scientists used weather radar to find where the pieces landed, and meteorite hunters were able to collect the meteorite quickly before its chemical makeup got changed by exposure to liquid water, according to reporting in phys.org. And as a new paper in Meteoritics and Planetary Science shows, that gave scientists a glimpse of what space rocks are like when they're still in outer space, including a look at pristine organic compounds that could tell us about the origins of life. There are about 1,000 star systems where aliens, if they existed, could be watching us from afar, new research suggests.
In our search for life in the universe, we ask a little bit of a different question in this research. We ask, who could have actually spotted us? Who could have found out that Earth is teeming with life from their vantage point?
Lisa Kaltenegger, director of the Carl Sagan Institute at Cornell University and associate professor in astronomy. LiveScience.com reports that researchers asking which nearby stars are lined up properly for their inhabitants to see Earth transit in front of the sun. Would any life forms in those star systems be able to detect signs of us, the living things on Earth's surface? The answer is yes, it turns out, for a great number of nearby stars. There's more news at parabnormalradio.com. Wishing you a spooky Halloween. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
I'm Jeremy Scott. My guest, Stephen Williams. He is the founder and the director of Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. They do help spirits to cross over from this dimension to the next. So let's get into some of those locations that you have investigated, not only in western Tennessee and eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, but also the states of Louisiana and Alabama and Kentucky and Missouri. So quite a few states. Can you tell us about some of the sites?
Yeah, we investigate within a 150-mile radius around Memphis, so that covers the states that you mentioned. But if we get some kind of inquiry from someone where children are being traumatized by spirit activity, we'll travel a lot further than that. And we've actually been, I don't know, I think the longest trip we've made since this new group has been together is maybe like 600 miles round trip. So we'll travel further in those situations. But asking about some of the locations, I mentioned earlier battlefields and that type thing. I've been in Shiloh, which was a real bloody conflict here in the Tennessee, western Tennessee area. I've had experiences there where I've heard saber being rattled in certain locations in the battlefield. But I was down in Georgia on a trip down there, and we went to Fort Sumter, Andersonville, and I was there with a medium, and we were walking the battlefield, and I suddenly sensed this male energy had come up behind us, and so I could tell it was a young man, and I asked my friend there to see if she could tune in and really get a good description. Well, he was a young Union soldier, and he was looking for his loved ones. So we did some counseling with him and tried to find out, exactly who he's looking for, and we have ways of connecting spirits with the people they're looking for. And once he made that connection, all of a sudden, it was just pretty much overwhelming because there was like a whole line that lined up behind him. So many times when there's a crossing and there are other spirits nearby watching, intrigued by what's going on, when they see that portal open up, they describe, the mediums that I work with describe it almost like there's a doorway that kind of opens up, and there's light, and you can look in there and see different figures and people. As far as you can see. And so there was a mass crossing there at Andersonville, and it actually was going on for such a long time. We had to leave. Our group was leaving, so it was still going on when we left. But those are very emotional experiences when you witness something like that.
We did have a question that came in through, I believe, our Facebook page chat regarding the Robin Hood Hills murder victims in West Memphis, 8-year-old boys who were killed in the early 90s. So no doubt wherever they were killed, there might be some history of some activity. Are you familiar with that case? Any insight there?
Yeah. Let's see I forget the name of. It's the West Memphis 3, I believe, is what they call that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 3 guys who were convicted of that. They were young guys, and there was a lot of questionable evidence and so forth. And I think those guys were eventually exonerated of that. But no, I know of the general area. It's over across the Mississippi River in West Memphis, Arkansas. I've read about the case. I've never been over in that area. I think it was just pretty much a subdivision and some creeks that ran behind the subdivision where that occurred. So no, I've not had any kind of opportunity to go over there. And
what about some of the other cases that you have investigated? Maybe some of the ones we might be familiar with, some of those notable places.
Yeah, the Thomas Hotel or Thomas House over in Red Boiling Springs. I know that the Ghost Hunter guys went there back when before this new show, new lineup was there, and I think what was the other guy? There was another group that went in there, but I actually had the rare opportunity about 6 or 7 years ago to spend the night by myself in that location. There was no one else there that weekend for some reason. So I had the run of the place, that wing back there where they see this little girl. And I actually made contact with her and did a lot of counseling with her. But sometimes child spirits are really hard to work with. They're pretty happy where they are. I guess they like the attention. And so I did work with her. I don't feel like she ever released at that point, but at least she knows that she can. And that, again, is we feel is a responsibility, even though we might go into a location, one of these famous locations that you hear about, and if we're able to connect with those spirits that people see, many times they will release on the spot, and I think many times they will choose to think about it. And, and then when they feel like the time is right, they'll make that transition. I feel like sometimes they need that experience of being an earthbound spirit, and we don't know, if that's in their highest good or not. So our goal is to go in and connect and to do the counseling, and then if they're ready at that point, connect them with their loved ones and help them to make the transition. But at least they know they can always call on those people if they're ready, when they get ready.
Steven, has there ever been a location where you or a member of your team has gone to that you have vowed never to return for any reason?
No, we're always, eager and ready to go anywhere someone needs help.
So nobody's been scared straight?
Away from, there's a lot of places you hear about these prisons and so forth, and that's our focus is on really pretty much helping residential and business owners. That seems to be our calling. So we don't spend a whole lot of time going out and checking all these places that people like to go and, go for the chills and thrills and maybe try to record a voice or something and put it on their YouTube channel. That's not for us. Our work is very private and it's very sacred to us. We feel like it's service work. So we never charge anything, haven't ever charged a penny in 18 years for doing this kind of work. And many times people will try to pay us because sometimes, we've made that 600-mile round trip over to East Tennessee to help that family over there. But we have a charity here in Memphis. It's St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and they're working hard to find a cure for pediatric cancer and other catastrophic diseases. So if someone wants to acknowledge that we've helped them, we just ask them to make a donation to St. Jude. So
Stephen,
it's very sacred service work to us.
Yeah, what is it about, the child trauma and paranormal events and about what the work of St. Jude that really gets at your heartstrings?
Well, I've actually been in St. Jude and know families who have been helped there. And, of course, they don't have to pay anything. It's all provided to them. All that care is provided. So it's just really special for us to have that right here in downtown Memphis. And it's been going for so long. It's just a really worthy, charity, and it helps a lot of people. So, if we can do a little bit to help with that, have someone send a donation in our name or anonymously, we're all for that.
Can you tell us about some of the cases where you have been to a residence, likely, where there has been an encounter that, a child has suffered some sort of trauma from that encounter?
Yeah, earlier I mentioned about how sometimes spirits will get stuck in mental loops. And we went into a house in Midtown Memphis. This is when Kayla and Jennifer were working with me when we first got going with this about a couple of years ago. And we got called to this house, and we got into the interior of the house, and there was a young girl that we discovered. She was about 11 years old, appeared to be about 11 years old, spirit child. And she was hiding in a closet, and all she would say to us is, "The house is on fire." And that was the last thing I think she remembered. She probably perished, and was from smoke inhalation. And so, again, we're energy channels, so we're able to direct some high vibrational energy to her to help her break out of that loop. And once she was able to drop that thought and focus on us, and we were able to get a dialogue going with her, she was very, very eager to rejoin her family. But she was basically lost and stuck there in a loop. And who knows how long that would have gone on if we hadn't, been called into that house. And that to me is really tragic. And that's not the only instance I've come across where someone is just obsessed with a thought. Maybe it's the last thought they had. And that can be children, that can be grown-ups too.
Stephen, as investigators, what happens before you leave a home? There's some final things that have to be done.
Right. So the last thing we do is that vibrational clearing. And I explained to the homeowner that the house that we were in last night, that house was built in 1921. So it's a rental house. So a lot of people have come and gone in that house over the years. There's been a lot of emotional energy there. Maybe joy, maybe sorrow, anxiety, depression, anger. And those energies, in our experience, we're able to sense those energies. And sometimes you'll go into a room, and one particular room might just feel extremely dense or heavy. And it's probably because of some event that occurred in there, or maybe someone lived in that room. The spirit lady that was in the house last night, it felt like she was suffering from dementia. So she had actually lashed out a couple of times and kind of slapped at people. But I don't think she was doing it, because it was a malevolent thing. She was just probably in pain, and sometimes that's the case. But so we explained to the homeowner that once we do this clearing, that will neutralize and change all that energy in there. And I would say every single time we do that, it has such a positive, uplifting, light effect on the house. And I asked the homeowner to do a final walkthrough with us to be sure that every room feels good and light to them. And they all agreed to that last night. So it's we don't want to go in there and do the work without pretty much sweeping the place out, I guess you'd say. And again, it's not me who's doing that work. We're asking on our spiritual allies on the other side to work through us. And we do use, I use a tuning fork that's tuned to a certain frequency, and I use a rose quartz crystal as an amplifier for that. But it's actually our spiritual allies who are doing the work. And I've been in situations where I've worked with families who have young children. Usually it's usually a girl, maybe that's reached puberty, maybe 12, 13 years old that suddenly becomes very aware of their gifts, and spirits will start to bother them. We worked with a family down in Mississippi. This young girl would go to school, and suddenly there would be a spirit sitting next to her in a chair, and he had been in an accident. This guy had been in an accident. He was coming to her because he knew that she could see him. And they're always attracted to people who can perceive them, and because they're always looking for that help to try to find their way into the light, into the next level. But this girl, when I got to the point where I was going to do the clearing of the house, I didn't tell her what I was going to do, and I pulled that tuning fork out and struck it on that crystal, and she said, "Oh, there's light coming from it." So she's clairvoyant, and she could see actually what was taking place. So again, I'm basically I make myself a channel and ask for those spiritual allies that we work with to work through me and do that work.
And you're actually doing some things to try to improve your mediumship abilities as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, up until about 2005, I felt I was as psychic as a fence post. I couldn't sense anything, or if I was feeling anything, I wasn't able to interpret it. But when that tingling sensation started, I sought teachers, and I worked with mediums and tried to figure out what was going on. And then it's almost like they've mapped out my crown chakra. And I can tell, I can pretty much go into any location. And if you were having spirit activity in your home, Jeremy, I'd be able to walk in and tell you, in this room, there's a man here or a female here, whatever. And whether or not they're earthbound or crossed over, it could be a relative. Sometimes they'll come in times of crisis, or what they want to get a message across to someone in the family. But it's very handy. But anybody, I think, can learn how to develop that if they want to. And I'll have a lot of tips in my guidebook as to how to do that. One way that's really good is to maybe become attuned to Reiki, or one of the energy modalities that kind of opens you up to feeling this energy better.
Any specific story you wanted to leave the audience with, as far as one of your favorite stories that you haven't shared with us already tonight?
I would say my favorite of all that I've ever been involved in, we got called to a house, just a rental house, typical little rental house that we go to a lot of times, near Memphis. And it was a young family who were terrified to the point where they were all sleeping together in one part of the house. And that part of the house they were sleeping in was a new addition. So it was like the spirit that was in the house wasn't aware of that. But what was going on was the young girl in the family would come home from school every day, and she'd see this little boy at the back door, and he was waiting on her, and he wanted to play with her, and he told her his name was Henry, and it was really cute. She said he was wearing capris. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up, and it was the knickerbockers that the kids used to wear in the 1930s. So this kid his name was Henry, and I brought a couple of mediums in there at different times and connected with him, and he had come from a different location to that site. But he was quite amazing. I could take an EMF meter in there and say, "Hey, Henry, how are you today?" And he would interact with the equipment. He'd make it light up. He loved music from that time period. I took some children's songs from the early 1900s in there, and he would light up the equipment. And I tried and counseled him, but he was having a good time there. He was having a lot of fun. And there was another child spirit with him who was his sister. And I spent the night. The family finally moved out, and I decided I was going to go in and make one last effort to try to get both those children to cross over if they were ready. So the night that I chose to do that, it was a raging thunderstorm, and I was in the house by myself. I was up in the woods, and so about 2:00 in the morning, I was still awake, and the power went out. And so I was going through the house with a flashlight, and as I walked past this doorway, it felt like I heard a little giggle, and it felt like someone had dumped this ice cold tub of cold water on me. and I was just chilled from head to toe. And I turned and looked, and this little girl ran past the doorway. I mean, she was fully manifested, and she was wearing a white dress. And so I went into that room and looked for her. And of course, I couldn't find her. But later that night, I went down into this area where there was a couch, and I was going to sleep on that couch. And I got the idea to sing to her, and she did come to me, and I could feel her climb up on my lap because my whole body became electrified from her energy. And I was able to help her transition, but I never was able to convince Henry. I think he was just having such a good time there. So a little bit of time passed, and I met a different medium, or this different medium, and I decided to take her out there to see if we could connect with Henry and do some more work with him. And they had bulldozed the house. The house was a big pile of rubble. And on top of about this 10 or 12 foot pile of rubble, there was a chair. And so I hadn't told this medium friend of mine anything about Henry or my experiences there. I just said I wanted to take you out to a location. And I asked her, I said, do you see anybody here? And she said, yeah, there's a little boy on top of that chair, sitting on that chair. So that was Henry. And I never could convince him or persuade him to transition. And then actually I went back there about a year later, and that site had grown over with a lot of bushes and so forth. And I could feel him there, and I could feel him get in the car with me. And I talked to him a little bit, but he went back. So he's either so strongly attached to that site for some reason. I never could quite figure that out, but that's probably my favorite case I've ever worked on. Hopefully one of these days I'll be able to convince him to cross over.
Yeah, is it maybe possible that he doesn't know or think he's dead?
It could be. And but the other thing that's it used to really disturb me when we would discover child spirits at locations. But what I've come to learn is that there is always a crossed over relative guardian type energy with those children. So they're being protected and watched over. And so our job again is so when I got his little sister to cross over, there was like an aunt. There was a woman there that I felt like was an aunt. And I was able to direct her attention to that woman to where she was able to see her. And then after that, was like, whoosh, she went right to her. So a lot of times that kind of thing has to happen. But I don't know. He was just kind of wrapped up in his own little world for some reason. So that reminds me, I need to go out there and just drive down that street and see if he's still out there. But, at least he knows that he can make that transition when he wants to. And, maybe it'll be his sister who comes for him some night. Maybe she'll come and she'll say something or do something that gets his attention, and he'll go with her. Maybe he's already gone. I don't know. I'll have to go out there and check on him.
Happy Halloween to you, Stephen. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Well, thank you, sir. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. That's Stephen Williams, and he is the founder and the director of Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. MemphisGhostInvestigations.com is their website. And I'm Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest with more dead air coming up.
If you're listening on the Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live, thank you for putting us on the list of most popular shows. Download the app at TalkStreamLive.com and listen to Into the Paranormal 24/7.
It's Dead Air. I'm Jeremy Scott, and my guests coming up next on the program from the San Diego Paranormal Research Society, the paranormal researcher, author, radio host, and founder Nicole Strickland, and also her co-director Ali Schreiber here. They've written a book together, and of course Nicole has written many of them herself about some of these investigations, haunted attractions, as we're going to call them, around the West Coast particularly. Nicole has a love of history, paranormal studies, and writing. She is one of the leading paranormal researchers on the West Coast, the founder and director of San Diego Paranormal Research Society. She's a consultant to various other investigative groups, including the American Spectral Society. She's known for her gentle and humble approach to working with the spirit realms, her clients in the paranormal field at large. She is known for her research as well as the iconic RMS Queen Mary in Long Beach, California, and has co-hosted the Spirits of the Adobe tours at California's iconic Rancho Buena Vista Adobe since 2011. And she was a core member of the renowned Ghost Research Society from 2009 to 2017, serving as the Southern California Area Research Director. She's also a writer and contributor to Paranormal Underground magazine. So good to have both of you here on this Halloween. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us tonight. We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Me as well.
We're very excited to be here. Thank you.
So voice one, I think, is Nicole. Voice two is Allie, correct?
Thing one is Nicole and thing two is Allie.
All right.
Yes, you got it.
All right, just so we differentiate, because you're both lovely, and I appreciate you coming on the program tonight. So how did you two ever think it was a good idea to investigate haunted locations?
Oh, my goodness. Who should go first? Me? Allie, you want to go? You want me to? Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. I try to, narrow this down because I have a tendency to go on tangents sometimes, so I'll keep it short. I've always had an interest spanning, ever since I was a little kid, ever since I was as young as I can remember, just always an interest in the unknown. And I've always been drawn to the night. Not that that has anything to do necessarily with paranormal. I just thought I'd say that because it's getting darker early now. That just popped in my head. So I thought I'd drop that in there. But yeah, I've had experiences my whole life and I've always had that interest, but it was a profound encounter with my maternal grandmother's spirit when I was in undergraduate college. And I've shared this, of course, on other shows, this experience. So some that may be listening have already heard this, but it was such a profound encounter. She passed away from congestive heart failure. And she called me the night before she passed, just wanting to know if I was okay. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just busy with school. And I talked with her a little bit. And then the next morning, my mom called me and said Grandma passed away early in the morning. And of course I was devastated. And I started having really odd experiences in my apartment that didn't happen prior to her death. But of course, thinking logically, I thought, okay, it's vibration, it's things from my neighbors, noises from my neighbors. But I had the doorknobs on some of my doors move by themselves as if someone was touching them. One night I felt a disembodied hand caress my face, although I didn't see anything, and it felt as if it came from someone I knew and loved. And then a couple of nights later, give or take 2 or 3 nights later, I was studying in my bedroom doing schoolwork, and I saw my grandmother's spirit just standing before me, and she looked solid. She wasn't translucent, very backlit. It almost looked like she had a halo behind her, and about 10 years younger, and she looked quite peaceful. And that experience kind of got me out of the lab, so to speak, because I would always get books and anything I could read on the subject. And ever since then, I've been out in the trenches and investigating the paranormal. And so I've worked with different teams in Southern California, but founded the San Diego Paranormal Research Society in 2009. So we've been going for a long time. It's been a really good journey.
Okay, Allie, you want to chime in on that?
Oh, well, I always say that if you're going to go into this line of work or this profession, you don't always find it, it finds you.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. I did have a number of very profound experiences growing up, which in total honesty scared the bejesus out of me. And I never talked about it with anybody. I just always kept that stuff to myself. And then after college, my father passed away, and I had a very profound experience the night of his passing. It took me a long time, about 10 years, before I could tell anybody about it. And I told my mom, and I thought she was going to say, oh my gosh, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. And she just gave me that mom look, like she understood. She just goes, It was kind of an unspoken thing that she and I had, that I understand that she knew exactly what I was talking about. She had those experiences too. We just didn't ever talk about it. And then when I moved to California, I was at a paranormal conference. I was investigating with another team, and I went to a paranormal conference and was lucky enough to meet Nicole. And lo and behold, what was it, Nicole? About 3 or 4 years later, I went to the Adobe on a tour with some friends.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, she's not going to remember me.
I did. I was like, oh my gosh, yay. Because the conference was in 2010, I believe. So that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been investigating ever since. I was just, I don't know. It's just this weird thing. I always call Nicole my soul sister, because as of that night, I was like, you know what? We investigate very well together. We gel together. We know what each other is thinking, and things just sort of happen when we're around and we're investigating. We get amazing, results. And I've been in it ever since. And I can honestly say, if you have experiences happening to you like I did when I was younger, and it used to scare the crap out of you, there's no reason to be scared. Accept it and know that doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be,
absolutely
an unpleasant experience. It can be a pleasant experience. It can be an uplifting experience if you let it.
It could be a life-changing experience too.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Allie, so you bring up a point that goes back to our conversation of the last hour, talking about children traumatized by some of this behavior. It doesn't sound like that might have been the case for you. So how did you deal with it?
Well, the first experience I had that I can remember was with a pet. And again, the pet came to me after it died, and it scared me. And I didn't talk about it. I just kind of buried that. And then I would have these feelings, and a family member or somebody would pass, and I would not necessarily see them, but I could feel them. I just had a sense, like I knew that they were around. But that experience with my father when he passed, that was very profound. He came to me that night that he passed, and he hugged me. It was a physical hug. I can remember what he was wearing. I don't talk about it a whole lot, but I remember what he was wearing, everything. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to be afraid of this. I don't want to talk about it because people will think I'm crazy. This was a long time ago. It's more easy to talk about now, but back then, oh, you didn't talk about that kind of stuff. People would think you're out of your mind, So when I finally did come clean and talk about it to my mom, and she just kind of gave me that look, she understood, and that just gave me a sense of, oh, okay. So there was no reason to be scared before. I handled it by not acknowledging it, I guess, which might not have been the right thing to do, but that's just how I coped with it back then. And I embrace it now.
Fascinating. So talk about the location that you guys wrote in your book together, where it is located and some of its history, and then we can get into the experiences that happened to you as you were there.
Oh my God, I guess I'll start. So and this is before I started working at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, before Allie and I joined forces. We joined forces in, I want to say it was the latter part of 2013. So we've been working together for many years now. And like she said, it was almost destined to be, because her and I just have this very very unique mojo. And when we go into a place, we have the same sort of approaches to methodology, same sorts of thought patterns. We respect and revere the energies that we work with. I mean, the list goes on. So it's really been an honor to work with her all these years. So I started working, I actually conducted a couple of private investigations at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe. I want to say it was 2010. And then the city of Vista, which owns it now, the city of Vista purchased it in 1989. Vista, for people that aren't familiar, it's in North County, San Diego. It's right in between Oceanside and San Marcos. So it's an iconic land rancho up there. There's another one as well about 2 miles from it called the Rancho Guajome. But the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe is one of the best kept land ranchos. And this whole land, the Adobe actually came to be around 1850. And so the building that you see now was built in various stages, and it literally just started with like a little hut on the land. So Governor Pio Pico at the time granted ownership to a neophyte, which was a Native American. And so from that point, he was the first owner. And then from that point on, several other owners came through the facility, added on to the structure. I mean, several prominent early Southern California pioneers like Cave Johnson Couts and his wife, Isadora Bandini Couts. For those that have been to Old Town San Diego and have gone to the Bandini House or the Cosmopolitan Hotel, have most likely heard of their names. They own the property there for a while. So several different owners throughout the years. And then, like I said, the city of Vista purchased the property in 1989, and it's now a museum. They have wonderful historical tours that take you through the property. They have, I believe, for 4th and 5th grade students, might be 3rd grade in there too, called Adobe Days, where these elementary school students can come and learn how people thrived in those early times. So they make tortillas, they make pottery, and they do all kinds of neat little activities on the property. So it's just a well-kept museum and one of San Diego's and Vista's iconic historical / haunted locations. And it's one of those locations that's not as well known, like the Whaley House or the Hotel del Coronado or the Star of India. But we've been hosting tours there since 2011. Can't believe it's been that long. My goodness. Right now with COVID-19, we haven't had a tour since, I want to say, February. We stopped in March because of the pandemic. But the tours are fundraising tours, which is great because the money goes to upkeep of the property. And the tours are 2 hours in length. So the third Friday of each month, we have a 7 p.m. and a 9:30 p.m. And because the facility is on the small side, there's only a maximum of about 10 to 13 people per tour. But we talk about the history. Allie and I talk about our approaches to investigating, a little bit about the San Diego Paranormal Research Society, and then we take in guests in throughout the property and do some experiments. We do a dowsing rod session in there just to give a little dose of metaphysical approaches. And we do a live collective EVP session, and we also do a spirit box session. So it's a really great event for people not only to get a glimpse of the history of the location, but to learn a little bit about paranormal research. So it's fantastic.
When we talk about a location that's haunted, most people think of death or associate that with death. Is there a history of death there?
Oh my gosh, Allie can chime in on this as well. Yes, there is. What's interesting about one of the rooms in the property, and it's actually called the Mayor Domo room. So that's, I guess, where the head foreman had his office and where he slept and all that. Back in, I want to say, the late 30s, early 40s, I don't have the date off the top of my head, an electrician that was installing wiring in the facility found skeletal remains in part of that room. We don't know exactly where. Allie and I kind of have an idea of the spot where we think it is, just based on the wall structure. And so, this hasn't, it's documented that the electrician found those remains, but we don't necessarily know who that is. per se. We have an idea based on some of our research. We think it might be an individual by the name of Juan Gonzalez, based on some of our intuitive impressions and some of our results over the past several years. There have also been a couple of owners that did pass away on the property, but I think too, back then, historical records weren't as, complete as they are now. So I do think, and I don't know what Allie's opinion is on this, but I do think that there might have been some other deaths on the property or in the vicinity of it, just based on the rough times of those days.
I do think we did hear somewhere one of the docents unfortunately passed on the property, and
right, that's right.
We learned about that after we had started our tours, and a woman came on the tour, and she used to be a docent there on the property, and she told us about this gentleman that had passed there. Nicole and I did a little service. We went back and did a little service for him. I don't think that we have spoken to that particular spirit, but we did also hear that perhaps one of the Couch children might have passed on the property. Again, we've been through all the records, and they just, like Nicole said, they just didn't keep really great records back then, so it's hard to pinpoint. But I do want to make one addition to what Nicole said about the remains in the wall. When they were retrofitting the building and the electricians discovered the remains, they didn't want to attempt or disrupt the remains at all. So they sealed the wall up. There's no wiring in that wall, and the remains are still there. So,
which I actually think was respectful to do.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah,
yes,
so
I think that was the right thing to do. And if you've been in an adobe building, which if you've been to Southern California back then, that's how they built houses. The adobe walls are very, very thick. The adobe is actually mud, compacted mud that they made into these big, gigantic bricks, sometimes 12 inches by 12 inch bricks. And so those adobe walls can be 2 to 3 feet thick. So the fact that you could put human remains in there is very plausible.
What are some of the classic stories of the encounters that people have reported over the years at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe?
Oh, yeah. Allie, you want me to go, or do you want to go? I always feel like I chime in first.
Yeah, no, that's
I always
fine.
feel bad.
I'll start real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
What we were just talking about, the legend of Juan, supposedly was the individual that was found in the wall. His spirit comes through for us quite often. He was the first spirit that I met at the Adobe. We seem to have a good rapport with him. He's a bit of a jokester. He's one of the prominent spirits there. Another spirit at the Adobe is the woman in white. People have seen her. Nicole, I think your mom saw her, right?
My mom did. And actually one of the rooms, the great room it's called, or the music room, it's a big, large room there at the Adobe. And my mom was inside and looked out and saw a woman in like a white gown or a white dress kind of floating by in the courtyard area. So,
yeah. And we believe that might be Isadora Bandini de Couts. Was that right, Nicole?
Yeah. I think it's Isadora Bandini de Couts, who's the wife of Cave Johnson Couts. And they, like I said, they were a prominent family. They owned the property for a good amount of time. They didn't live there, though. They lived at the other Adobe about 2 miles away, which was the Rancho Guajome. But some people think it might have been one of her daughters as well, who also is named Isadora. She had some financial issues, so it's hard to know. But I think, Allie and I pretty much think it's Isadora Bandini de Couts.
Yeah, because she was very proud of her gardens, and we think that she would go to the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe and she would oversee, the gardening that was going on and making sure the gardens were kept up and that kind of thing. I think she was very proud of that. That ties into another story at the Adobe. They do weddings there, by the way, and beautiful weddings. And a florist was in the great room and putting some flowers out. And he came to the caretaker there, Frank, at the property, and he goes, "You know what?" He goes, that woman in there is bugging me. She keeps telling me that she doesn't like the flowers and she doesn't like anything that I'm doing. And I just don't want to deal with her anymore. And Frank's like, "There's nobody here but you and I. There's no woman here." And he went and searched the property and there was nobody there. And he asked this florist to describe this woman. And he did indeed describe what we have pictures of, which is...
Hold that thought. Dead Air continues from the San Diego Paranormal Research Society. My guest, Nicole Strickland and Ali Schreiber. I'm Jeremy Scott. We'll be back.
Don't venture too far. You might not make it back into the Parabnormal.
Parabnormal News, I'm Brad Bernards. NASA's first ever asteroid sampling operation apparently went a little too well.
Osiris got more than enough material from the touchdown, so much that a flap was actually wedged open by rocks, allowing particles to escape into space. So now the team will perform a planned maneuver to stow the material early.
That's from CBS Denver reports. OSIRIS-REx's handlers now plan to stow the collected material in the probe's return capsule as soon as possible to minimize the material lost, according to Space.com. The asteroid rocks and dirt will then make their way to labs around the world where scientists can study them for clues about the solar system's early days and the role that carbon-rich space rocks like Bennu may have played in helping life get started on Earth. NASA's next Mars rover is halfway to its otherworldly destination.
Our job is to actually go and collect the samples, whether it's a regolith, a sand material, or actual rock samples. We'll then hermetically seal the tube. The tube will eventually be dropped off at a site where a future mission would be able to come and pick it up and potentially bring the samples back.
Eric Aguilar, NASA JPL engineer and Mars 2020 Technical Group Supervisor. The Mars 2020 rover Perseverance, which launched on July 30th, has now traveled 146 million miles in deep space, half of the total required to reach the Red Planet, mission team members announced Tuesday. The 28-mile wide Yezdo, where Perseverance will touch down on February 18th, hosted a lake and a river delta in the ancient past. There's more news at parabnormalradio.com. Wishing you a happy Halloween. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Are there any spirits here that would like to talk?
Did I hear Bob or Nate?
Christ save thee not this. If God be your father.
The sunset.
Chilling encounters with the departed. My guests, Nicole Strickland and Ali Schreiber from the San Diego Paranormal Research Society on this All Hallows Eve. 855-790-8255. Toll free in North America. That's 855-790-TALK. or 503-506-0396 outside North America, and ITP51 on Skype. Back to master storyteller Allie, who's telling us about this caretaker and an encounter with a pesky woman, and an encounter that was later revealed or verified through pictures. Please continue.
Yeah, it was the woman was described as Isadora Bandini de Couts, which is the same woman. Her pictures are hanging in the Adobe. They're not in that room where the florist was. And the docent Frank tells that story and said, the florist didn't want to come back. He said it kind of freaked him out. So.
There's actually another story, too, regarding the lady in white, and this had to do early in the morning. I want to say this was in the early 90s. I'm not sure of the date, some time ago. And it was dawn, maybe 6:37 in the morning, and they had gardeners working on landscaping in the garden or courtyard area. And one of them saw a woman in like a white dress or a white gown. And then they turned for a brief second, and when they looked back, she was completely gone. So, of course, I think one, if not both of them, quit. So there's all these stories. I mean, we have an interesting thing, too, about one of the docents that was very familiar with the Adobe, and she worked there for many years. Her name was Claire. She passed away, and one of the City of Vista employees' sons came on one of our tours one night, and we were in the great room area doing an EVP session, and of course we had the obelisk set up. We don't solely pay attention to the words that come out of that device, but if we can make some sort of context with them, of course, it connects, I guess, a piece of a puzzle, so to speak. So one of the words, and we had it in dictionary mode, as we know that dictionary mode doesn't have a list of people's names per se, and Claire isn't that common of a name. So this particular employee's son was asking questions to Claire, and our obelisk came out and said the word Claire. We checked the readout, and it said the word Claire, and that's never happened since. And so that was interesting with him being on the tour. He knew her, so that was really cool. Several different owners throughout the years, we've been able to document their names coming through ITC work. And again, some people can think, oh, that's coincidental, it may be a radio snippet, that sort of thing. But what we've noticed is a pattern. We keep hearing the same sorts of male and female vocalizations that come through on a monthly basis, saying their names of, like, for example, Maria Antonia is one of them. She was one of the daughters of one of the owners, and she's come through. One of the questions, I think, is one of the clips I think that I sent, where we say, Maria Antonia, is this you? And you hear a whispered yes coming through. Luis, there was another caretaker by the name of Luis that has come through quite often. So it's interesting. And in ITC, ghost box work, we use two different types of devices, usually on our tours and our investigations. We don't solely pay attention to that and take all the words that come through as gold. No, not at all. But when you're able to have words that come through that are historically relevant or corroborate or have something to do with the questions that you're asking, that's really interesting. So it seems as though that the method of ITC works really well at the Adobe. I mean, there's so many experiences we've had. We'd be here all night. But yeah, the lady in white's the big one. She's the big one. And then, of course, the remains in the Mayor Domo room.
Both of you are fascinated with the history as much as you're fascinated with the paranormal, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. How can you not be, right? I mean, I think the two, I consider them like peanut butter and jelly. You can't have one without the other necessarily. So, yeah. And I think two places that have a rich historical tapestry, I think are I shouldn't say prime targets, but you see more of a foundation of paranormal phenomena with those types of iconic historical locations. So, and I think I don't know what Allie's definition is. I'm sure she'll agree with me because her and I are pretty much in tune all the time. But the word haunting kind of has a negative connotation. We get that. But I mean, my definition for a place to actually be haunted is there has to be some sort of historical tie there. So the energies that are there have to have some sort of historical connection to that property. And if you find that consistently, then I would say that that's definitely would lead more toward a haunting as opposed to, I guess, a transient sort of just paranormal or fleeting paranormal phenomena, if you will.
Especially if the spirit is intelligent.
Yes, right.
Then, yeah, 100%. Because at the Adobe, when we do our EVP sessions, we're very careful, and we always try to ask very historically relevant questions. We ask questions to the spirits out of respect for them. We're not going to come out and say, "Oh, can you tell me what so-and-so had for breakfast yesterday?" We keep the questions historically relevant to the property, because then the responses that we get, the spirits that are there are going to respect us and understand that we're there, and we're there to get to know them, and we have good intentions, and they respond to that. And we've gotten surprisingly historical relevant evidence at the Adobe. We've learned things about the Adobe through EVP sessions and responses before we actually found them in the library and doing our research. So that's
pretty phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, the Huntington Library in San Marino, California, I mean, a gorgeous, gorgeous place if you haven't been. They have annals and annals of Adobe research, especially pertaining to Cave Johnson Couts. I mean, actual records that he wrote with his own hand. So Allie and I have spent hours there scouring through these, and we've found some, like she said, we've found some very interesting correlations between some of the data that we've obtained through ITC or EVP, and then even personal experiences too with those historical records. So it's really, really cool.
Well, we had in the Major Domo room, we had an EVP session one night, and a gentleman named, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, is it Herman?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and we all thought to ourselves, okay, well, there's a new one. We haven't heard Herman before. This gentleman, this spirit, and introduced himself as Herman. We thought, okay, that's welcome. Yay, we're glad to talk to you. We then later found out, we found a picture where
in that room, actually, which is in that room.
Actually was in that room. We found a picture of these workers at the Adobe. It was a historic picture, and Luis Machado and Luis Machado Jr. were in the picture, along with this gentleman who's identified in the picture as Herman. But we didn't know about Herman.
Yeah, Herman Diaz, I think.
Herman Diaz. We never knew about the photograph. Herman introduced himself to us before we saw the picture. So I don't like to call the Adobe haunted. I like to call the Adobe very active.
It is, yeah. I prefer that too. I don't know, and their ley lines are so prevalent too in Southern California. But I mean, I'm wondering if there's some sort of geological influence too up there in Vista that could be kind of acting as like a capacitor or battery, if you will. Or, I mean, could there even be some sort of portal? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to know, but it's just a very consistently active location. So
I was going to save most of the EVPs or all of the EVPs for the next hour, but since we're talking about the Adobe here and most of the EVPs are from there, I thought we'd play one of them. And just to keep it simple, let's do the first one. And so, Nicole, the background on this one is what?
The first one, I think you might have queued up on there. I forget exactly which one
well, do we want to tell people what it says, or do we want to just play it?
I just don't know which one you're going to necessarily play. I think it's the one. Go ahead and play it, and then
let's do that, because I wanted to say here first, usually when I do EVP shows, I do get the audio ahead of time, and then I'm able to go in and kind of not necessarily enhance, but if there was needed some additional clarification, we can do some loops and fancy stuff like that, just so that it's most clear for the audience. I decided to not do any of that this year and just listen to these for the first time, not knowing any of the background or what it's going to say. So, listeners, you are going to hear this the same as me for the very first time. So here we go.
Or besides us here, how many of you are with us? Three. Thank you.
So I heard the question, how many of you are with us, and a conscious response of 3.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that's the quality of types. That is the type of ITC quality that we're getting. This isn't just a fleeting once or twice. I mean, we have several of these. So we were in the master bedroom, and we had a tour group. It was a full tour. It was about 10 or 12 people. And I asked, of course, that's my voice saying, how many of you are with us? And you hear what sounds like a female response of 3. Then you hear the guests saying 3 because they heard it. So, yeah, interesting.
Let's fire it away one more time here.
Or besides us here, how many of you are with us? Three. Thank you.
Now, were you hearing that real time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain the technology that you were using.
We were using, I believe it was the PSB7 Spirit Box, or we may have been using, I think that's the one we were using. It may have been Allie's. Allie has a old Radio Shack hack device too. It might have been that one as well. So, of course, that device is an ITC experimental device that scans the AM and FM bands of radio at a very, very, very rapid speed. And so there's snippets of sound that come through from radio stations. It's thought that energies can maybe use the frequency of that particular device and even the snippets of sounds to formulate their own words. And so what's interesting is if you get a word or then that is said over the amount of time that the device has already scanned several other stations, that's what you look for, because then you know right then and there that it's not just a little snippet of a radio station. So
I was just saying that's why you can hear the static. Sometimes that throws people off. There's static. That's the radio scanning the channels. And again, what we're looking for is that, that immediate response, direct response to our question. And in this case, the 3 was immediate. And then you hear, Nicole say thank you. And the guests were like 3. Yeah, 3. We were all nodding. We heard it very clearly.
Now, was the Spirit Box, did it have like a built-in speaker, or were you listening with headphones or what?
There is a built-in speaker. We had an external one just because the SB7 speaker isn't that loud. So we had a little external one there as well, which does help.
So
I don't think I was listening with headphones, though. I'm one of these that prefers, it's just me, and I've done both ways. I guess I prefer not having headphones. It depends, though. I have used both ways.
On the tours, we don't use the headphones because we want the guests to be able to hear any responses that come through.
Did you continue the dialogue? Because the next possible thing would be, okay, are you male, female? Why are you here? What are your names? I mean, a whole bunch of questions I could ask next. Did the communication continue?
Yeah, it usually does. I mean, I can't say without our notes right in front of us exactly what questions were said, but yeah, we kind of went based off of that and asked, is this Maria Antonio we speaking with, or are we speaking with Isidore Bandini de Couts, or is it someone else? Can you let us know your name? That sort of dialogue, absolutely.
All right. I guess number 2 here, we'll just play this one here. And again, we'll let the audience decide here for themselves what they think they hear. So here we go. This one's a little longer than the last one, by the way, audience.
How How many horses are here? 3. So there you go. That's an example of a contextual answer. That's what we're looking for.
Really good.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes. I had an inkling to ask about the horses. Can you tell us the colors of them? Are they brown, black? I don't know what that said.
Do you have any Appaloosa horses?
2. How many horses are here? How many horses are here? How many horses are here?
Do you have any Appaloosa horses? Do you have any Appaloosa horses? Do you have any Appaloosa horses?
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I know, right?
If you play it again and you listen really, really careful, after Nicole asks about what color are the horses, and you hear a little static, I was feeling that they didn't really know how to answer that question, and I thought I heard the word Appy, A-P-P-Y. That's short for Appaloosa. I know that because I raised Appaloosa horses when I was growing up. And so I then said, do you have any Appaloosa horses? And then we immediately got what sounds like another voice saying 2. But in the middle there, you can't hear it a whole lot, but I heard Appy, and that's why I asked that question. But that's my favorite EVP of
and this too, like this one, this goes to show historical relevance because Cave Johnson Coutts' son, Cave Coutts Jr., stayed at the property, didn't live there, but he owned like horses, and he would often keep his horses in at night because during that time there were a lot of horse bandits and horse thieves roaming the area. So there you go. That's kind of a historically relevant response to the history of the property, which is so cool when you get that.
Some of these horses died on the property.
We don't know that for sure, but I imagine it's quite possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that they did.
Maybe 3 of them.
Could be. Yeah.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
Let's hear it again.
How many horses are here? 3. So there you go. That's an example of a contextual answer. That's what we're looking for.
Really good.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes. I had an inkling to ask about the horses. Can you tell us the colors of them? Are they brown, black? I don't know what that said.
Do you have any Appaloosa horses?
2. How many horses are here? How many horses are here? How many horses are here?
Do you have any Appaloosa horses? Do you have any Appaloosa horses? Do you have any Appaloosa horses?
Wow. Just as amazing the second time through, ladies.
Yeah, that's a popular one. Yeah, we love it.
We have more EVPs tonight on our Dead Air broadcast with the ladies from the San Diego Paranormal Research Society. They are, of course, Nicole Strickland and Allie Schreiber. And so we'll take the break and we'll come back with, another hour of the program for you live on this All Hallows Eve. I'm Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest.
Missed the show live? Listen to it anytime, as many times as you'd like, at parabnormalradio.com. air.
You know, it's symbolic for so many reasons because literally, you know, we're talking about the departed or the dead, and there's just that chill in the air as happens in late October, and of course, dead air in radio is about the worst possible thing that you could have. It's an engineer's worst nightmare. My guests tonight from the San Diego Paranormal Research Society are Nicole Strickland and Ali Schreiber. We've been playing some EVPs from the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe there in Vista, California, and been talking about some of the history and everything. The one that we played right before the break has just been sitting with me that entire time because, ladies, we literally do have, and you hit it right out of the gate, we have a conscious conversation going on with some other intelligent species or something.
Yes. That's what it sounds like, and it's a consistent event there at the Adobe. It's just unbelievable.
Or it's just coincidence.
It could be. I mean, it's one of those things, though, and we don't go in expecting this, because, I mean, energies don't act on cue. We go in there with an open mind and all that, but it just seems that there's a willingness to communicate with us. And I don't know if it has to do with the fact that maybe they know us and they're familiar with us, or maybe they are responding to the fact that we go in with a lot of respect. I mean, I don't know. It's weird.
And it's consistent. Like, again, we don't expect anything going in, and we'll go home saying, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, I just don't feel it today. I don't know if I'm feeling anything today. And darn if we don't end up with evidence almost every time that we go. And the nights that are electric, we can tell going in, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is going to be a good night. And usually it is. And we get those responses like you just played. There's so many. Nicole picked a good few to highlight with you tonight, but there's so much evidence from that location. It's amazing.
So it sounds like you two have had pretty good success of getting these spirits to almost act on cue.
I wouldn't want to say that, they're acting on cue, but they do respond. Again, they know that we're there. We have very good intentions. We're very respectful to them. We never go in and provoke. We treat them the way we would treat any living person.
Is that a ghost detector going off?
It's not in my house. I don't know what it is.
I think that's a ghost detector.
That's the alarm on my front door. Somebody's coming in and out of the house.
Oh, you should have just played along.
Oh, yeah, it's a ghost detector.
Ghost detector.
Halloween, right? It is a ghost detector.
Oh, my gosh.
But no, we don't provoke. We go in and we don't never expect a spirit to perform for us. That's, we're not going to SeaWorld and watching, whales jump out of the water or whatever. We're there to communicate, and we're there to learn from these spirits. We don't go in and we don't talk about death. We don't talk about, when did you die and all that. We use what we call paraethics, and we really want to go in and be respectful, and not just of the spirits there, but of the property. And we feel that light attracts light. And so far that theory is working at the Adobe. So,
and it's weird too, because we've had a couple instances where Allie has heard her name, disembodied voice, say her name. And the same thing has happened to me. And I actually had a profound experience. Both her and I have had profound experiences with what we believe are beloved deceased family members. One night I was there, and this was during a tour, and I believe we were in the same master bedroom as the first ITC clip, how many of you are with us, the answer of 3. And again, I haven't done forensic voice analysis on this yet or anything, but I heard what sounded like my grandfather's voice come through saying, "Nicole, I love you." And then it sounded like my my grandmother, so that would have been his wife's, and they're both obviously departed. She came through and said, "Fulvio, go home, dear." Now, my grandfather's name was Andrew F. Lopinto, but to those close to him, his nickname was Fulvio. And so when I heard this, I took my headphones off and I just stared into like dead space, no pun intended, and I had tears coming down my face because, I mean, I didn't expect that, you know, and so that was at the Adobe when this occurred. So,
yeah.
Crazy.
Yes. So let's go to number 3, which we'll just play here, and then we will analyze after.
Maria Antonia, is this you? Maria Antonia, is this you?
What are we hearing, ladies?
Oh yeah, so this could have been edited a little bit better now that I listened to it. But so I'm saying, Maria Antonia, is this you? And you hear what sounds like a female response coming through in a whisper form saying, "Yes." That's what it sounds like to us. And it's interesting because this particular vocalization has, and we recognize it, it's come through for us several times. And we've actually, on other nights, have asked the same thing. Maria Antonia, are you joining us tonight? And we've heard the same, you know, same sounding voice say yes. So pretty cool.
And what is the response after you ask that question?
So I say, Maria Antonia, is this you? And then you hear some static, and emanating through that static, you hear what sounds like a response, a whispered response of yes.
And here we go again.
Maria Antonia, is this you? Maria Antonia, is this you?
There we have it. We have one more to get to from this location. Any other comments, ladies, you would like to make, though, about that clip before we play that final one?
Just that Maria Antonia, when she does come through, we have realized, and we're very, very fortunate to be able to go back to this location every single month and be there on a monthly basis, not just once in a while. This is a very constant thing that Nicole and I do at the Adobe. So all the evidence, like when we see patterns, it's because we're there a lot. And we've noticed when Maria Antonio seems to be coming through and respond to us, she speaks in a very whispered, she has a low whispered voice. And so we also listen to the inflection and the tone when these responses come through, and we can usually tell that it's her because that's how she sounds.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you.
Ghost detector's off the charts over there.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's going off over there. What is going on?
It's Halloween, and the front door keeps getting open, so you're hearing the.
Oh,
yeah. Right.
Anybody have any
candy? Goblins are coming in and out of the door.
Yeah.
Are they bringing candy?
They better be.
I got a Reese's sitting right in front of me that I'm going to eat at some point tonight, folks. So
I'm sorry about that. I can't turn that off. Unfortunately, that's the security. So.
No, it's okay. All right, so one more. Here,
ghost detector. Okay, sorry. I'll shut up.
No, it's fine. Here we go.
Juan, I have another question for you. Were you friends with the Indians?
Still am.
Still am.
That was freaky.
Thank you, Juan.
Oh my God!
Because I was getting that.
Oh my God! Yeah. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm. Juan, I have another question for you. Were you friends with the Indians?
Still am.
Still friends with the Indians after all these years.
Right. There you go. And we were addressing Juan Gonzalez there. And you hear what we left in guest reaction there. So you hear a female guest saying, "still am," after the word "still am" came through the device. And she was like, "Oh my goodness, that's so freaky." So I left that in there just to showcase that the guest heard that very clearly. So.
Yeah. And we want to make sure and mention the reason that Nicole phrased it as, "Are you still friends with the Indians?" is because back then, if we said, "Are you still friends with the Native Americans?" But when we're speaking to spirits that were, living in or around or working in the Adobe back in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, the term Indian was used back then. So when we're investigating, we do use terms that the spirits might be more familiar with.
I forgot to say that. Thanks, Allie. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I want to hear this one more time.
Juan, I have another question for you. Were you friends with the Indians?
Still am.
Still am.
That was freaky.
Thank you, Juan.
Oh my God.
Because I was getting that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Did you hear that? Mm-hmm.
Juan, I have another question for you. Were you friends with the Indians?
Still am.
Ladies, anything that has sent you running from this location?
That's a good question. Not me. No. Actually, well, yeah, I will admit that the spider, I actually... In the summertime, there's some really bad spiders there. So,
You got to be careful when you're walking around the Adobe in the dark, because these spiders are huge and they make human-sized webs across the walkways. And if you're not careful,
you're giving my wife the willies right now. I had to kill one for her earlier today.
There was one in one of the arched hallways, and we had just taken a tour group like in the back area. And so then that was about maybe like 10 minutes of our time. And then when we were walking back through that archway, there was one right there in the middle. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. Oh. Crazy.
Well, you said we could talk for hours. I'll give each of you an opportunity to pick, I guess, maybe your one favorite, if we have not discussed that already.
Sure. Yeah. You want to go for it, Allie? I have to think about.
I'm going to split mine super quick into two. I took my son with me on a tour. He was 16 at the time. And he saw a black figure. We were outside in the courtyard, and he saw through the bathroom window a human figure, walk through the bathroom. And there was nobody else in the house. We verified that, but he doesn't want to go back now that he's seen that. And then the second thing was the master bedroom, again, where we got the clip of 3 people with us. I was with Nicole's mother, and we were following the tour, and we were walking through the bathroom, and somebody touched my lower shoulder, and nobody was behind me.
I remember that night.
I have been touched at the Adobe. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, off the top of my head, I would say one of my favorites, and this was not on a tour. This was just on a private, just investigation with Allie and myself and another couple of investigators. And we were in the kitchen area, and we were doing a vigil in there and just some experimentation. And you can see through to the dining room from a certain part of the kitchen, and that's where I was standing. And I heard like the shuffling of feet, and then when I looked up, I saw like a tall, maybe almost 6 foot tall shadow figure walk out of the dining room area. And so then, of course, I think Allie, you went outside to see if it was maybe one of the security guards there, and he was actually in the guest house, which is like far away from where the kitchen is.
Completely outside the courtyard and across the drive.
So So there's a lot of, even our guests have a lot of personal experiences there. They'll see fleeting figures, shadow figures. Some people have even seen what looks to be a female wearing like a vintage dress. Phantom, another thing, phantom horse sounds have been heard by guests. People have like smelled the phantom smell of manure. There's no, nothing nearby, where like a farm or anything like that where you could get it's a business complex right next door, and the City of Vista Civic Center across the way, and then just some residential areas. But people have smelled the phantom smells of manure. People have heard the galloping of horses. People have heard like the sounds horses make with their mouths and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's interesting. Very, very interesting. Never ceases to amaze us, right, Allie?
Yeah. And because of COVID, we haven't been allowed to go back, and I seriously am having Adobe withdrawal.
So am I. I'm wondering if they'd be willing to do like a virtual event. They might. We might need to.
No, let's find out, because I'm missing it. I miss Juan.
So do I. Juan's our buddy.
Yeah.
What are some of the other cases and locations that you guys have researched as a team?
Oh my goodness! You want to go? I always feel like I chime in like before everyone else. So
quit talking so much, Nicole. Dang it!
I know. I need to shut up. I'll just shut up and let Allie do the rest of the show.
Please, no.
Go ahead.
Vista, Nicole and I investigated the AVO Theater, AVO Theater. It's another historic location in downtown Vista, and it's that was an active investigation. First of all, it was hotter than you know what in there, because they didn't run the air conditioning because we didn't want anything to interfere with our investigation. And we sat in that hot building, and so much was going on. We heard and saw shadow people sitting in the seats. We heard and saw stuff going on up in the camera room up above. It's a theater with a stage, but what do they call those up where the
projection area, maybe? Yeah, projection area.
Lighting, people sit. Wow, that was an active location. We really love the Star of India, but we personally really do love the Berkeley ferry boat, which is anchored right next to the Star of India at Seaport Village. It has a lot of history, that boat, and we haven't investigated the Berkeley together yet. We will. That's on our bucket list. But we have investigated the Berkeley individually, and we've both had very profound experiences on that ship. And Julian, you can tell them about.
Oh, Julian. Yeah, Pine Hills Lodge is in Pine Hills, which is pretty much like right next to Julian. It's a beautiful lodge there up in the mountains. And so we've been investigating there for quite some time, and we've had some interesting experiences in there. Like one that I can recall is we were up in the main lodge area, and there's about 6 or 8 rooms up there that you can stay in, and then there's like little individual lodges around the property. And so we were in there one night, we were doing an EVP session, and all of a sudden someone smelled, one of the investigators smelled the smell of fire. And we didn't know where this was coming from. We thought, oh my gosh, is there a wildfire nearby? Of course, nothing like that. No, homes nearby with fires going on because this was in the middle of the summer. And so then we found out by the owner that there was actually a fire several years ago in that part of the building. And so there have been a couple deaths on the property. Sadly, someone, I think he was a writer, was found deceased, I think, by suicide in one of the nearby rooms. So that's really sad. But that's just a really fun location to visit, because you get to spend the night, you get to go up to Julian, have apple pie the next day and all that. So that's great. We've also done the Escondido Public Library a couple of times, and then recently the Chula Vista Public Library. And we're going to be doing, there's 2 branches down there in Chula Vista. So we're going to be doing the civic branch, I think. And then there's a residential home, historical, like Victorian home down in Chula Vista that we're going to be doing in a while as well. So every case is so different, though. I always learn something new on every case that I do.
At our All Hallows Eve broadcast of the ladies from San Diego Paranormal Research Society will continue. Nicole Strickland and Allie Schreiber. I'm Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest.
We're streaming 24/7 on the Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live and at ParanormalRadio.com.
Abnormal News, I'm Brad Bernards. If you're intrigued or freaked out by the idea of the paranormal, you'll want to know which U.S. state has racked up more supernatural sightings since 2005 than any other. Reader's Digest says it turns out that supernatural encounters have been reported in every state in the United States, but SlotSource.com did a report on the states with the most ghostly sightings, and it turns out that some have seen more specters than others. A lot more. And that is Texas.
The list contains historical sites, abandoned buildings, restaurants, hotels, a ghost town, and even a city park.
In Texas, residents have seen 6,845 ghostly somethings since 2005. That shakes out to an average of 456 per year. Most encounters, though, are not reported. Parabnormal News originates in West Texas, where there are a number of ghost towns. This studio is in Valentine, Texas, where there are more abandoned houses than not. Valentine High School has a resident ghost that regularly scares teachers in the school after hours. Teachers report hearing the jingling of keys when they think they are alone in the building. The high school is one of the oldest continuously used high schools in the state, built in 1910. A tourist who pilfered fragments from the ancient city of Pompeii 15 years ago has returned the artifacts, claiming they were cursed. The Canadian woman, identified only as Nicole, sent a package containing 2 mosaic tiles, parts of an amphora, and a piece of ceramics to a travel agent in Pompeii, alongside a letter of confession. At the time of the theft, she said she wanted to have a piece of history that nobody could have, linked to that land of destruction. You can read more about tonight's news at ParanormalRadio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
I'm Jeremy Scott. It's All Hallows Eve, and we're live My guest, Nicole, Strickland and Schreiber, the San Diego Paranormal Research Society. It is so good to have them on the program here tonight. And we've been talking about some of the locations that they have investigated. Of course, among them, the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, which we have played several EVPs or electronic voice phenomena from and described those. And we have one more, which is not from that location, but is from another location, that of a theater in Illinois. Can you give us the historical background on this?
Well, this actually, I was on an investigation. It was actually Troy Taylor's Haunted America Conference in Decatur, Illinois. It's an annual event that he has there. So I was with the Ghost Research Society, headed up by Dale Katzmarek. I've worked with the team on a few cases out there. And we were at the Lincoln Theater, which I'm not so familiar with all the history, but I know at one point it had a pretty massive fire. So a lot of people that have spent a lot of time at the theater have had some interesting evidence regarding that. And there's a spirit or an earthbound there by the name of Red, R-E-D, who I don't know. He worked at the theater. I don't remember exactly what his role was. But during this investigation, it was Nicole Tito, Lisa Crick, and I, and they're members now of the American Spectral Society, but they were also with Ghost Research Society at the time. This was back in 2009. We were down in the dressing room area, and it was just the three of us. And so we were doing an EVP session, asking various questions, and I asked, "What are you going to perform tonight?" And then there's a male response that none of us heard at the time. And then I continue to say, "What are you getting ready for?" Now, what's interesting is this response was captured on only 2 out of the 3 recordings, or recorders, I should say. And then Harry Houdini used to perform there many years ago. And so there's actually a hook that he put in the dressing room that you can still see to this day. So the response to this question could potentially have something to do with maybe Houdini. It's hard to know, but yeah, the 3 of us are like, oh my gosh, this is like one of the best Class A EVPs we've ever heard. So pretty cool.
I guess we should just go ahead and play it then without any further to do. Here we go.
What are you going to perform tonight?
Magic.
What are you getting ready for? What are you going to perform tonight?
Magic.
What are you getting ready for?
Magic. Magic. Magic.
Do you have any idea what this clip is in regards to?
We were, yeah, I know, right? Magic, maybe? I don't know. It's crazy, though.
I mean, magic in the sense of like witchcraft magic, or I am a magician, like illusionist.
That's what we're thinking based on like the performances.
I mean, it was in a theater.
At the theater. Yeah. I was in like down in the dressing room basement area of the theater, but we didn't hear it at the time. This was like all in review, like when we reviewed a few days later. So crazy.
It's so clear. That's probably one of the best Class A EVPs I've ever heard. It's so clear. It's so great.
Okay, one more time.
What are you going to perform tonight?
Magic.
What are you getting ready for? What are you going to perform tonight?
Magic.
What are you getting ready for?
Magic. Magic. Magic.
So the obvious question is, there was no male figure with you, ladies?
No, not down there. No. And it was a pretty like solid area. I mean, there was, I think it was just the 3 of us down there, and then up on the first level, which was like far away, you couldn't hear. And I mean, there were males there, but not in that area. So it was just basically us down there. So not near us, no.
We did have a question that came in through the chat, and so we'll throw it here before we go wrap up our conversation, and that had to do with places that are haunted, and these are, typically locations where folks have passed on. There's been a lot of death, particularly with COVID-19 here. Do you think that those deaths are going to be future hauntings?
Ooh. Allie, you want to go first on this?
I've actually thought of that very thing. I feel that hospitals are already very active locations, just because there is a lot of anxiety and, death, and, there's a lot of things that happen in hospitals, both positive and negative. I think they're very active locations anyway. But specifically because of COVID-19 causing people to pass, I would say that there's probably as good a chance for hauntings in the future because of that as with any other reason that somebody would perish, any other type of illness. If somebody, didn't expect to go and it's sudden and they were alone and scared, I think their spirit would linger or try to make contact before they move on. But I think personally, just my very humble opinion, I think it would be the same as somebody who passed because of any other illness, whether it's a heart attack or, any other health, issue. That's just my opinion. Nicole?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think, it would be interesting, out of the tragic losses that we've had, and there have been so many with COVID-19. Mm-hmm. If those individuals, if surviving loved ones have experiences with them, and a lot of times it would be hard to know that unless they're documenting that for everyone to see. And so that would let us know right then and there. But, just like you said, it could be a heart attack, it could be a car accident, it could be a suicide. With COVID-19, these are individuals that, got sick at a time when they didn't expect to get sick. So in a way, it's an unexpected sort of death, which is sad because that may cause them to be more in an earthbound state. So this is where I think as paranormal researchers, we have, a duty to, in these types of cases, to try to help these sorts of entities that may not necessarily be in limbo, but may have passed on, maybe not know that they passed on, but if they know they passed on, they're just stuck here and not sure what to do. I think that we have a duty as paranormal researchers and spirit advocates to try to help them with that. Of course, it's their choice. So that's something that I'd like to say. But there have been so many deaths. And not necessarily in one location too. It's not like Gettysburg Battlefield where you have, or Waverly Hills where you've had like massive amount of people like that have died right then and there. But yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. I think Allie, you made a really good point on that. It's just like any other death.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's something to, as researchers, to just remember in the future when we're investigating, if we know that somebody from that location has passed during the time of COVID, then that's just something else that we put in our questioning. It's just another reason for us to go ahead and do the research and know that, okay, this happened during this time. This could be why this person is here. It's something. This is a historic time. People are going to be reading about this in the future. So it's something that as investigators in the future, we need to remember and know that it could be a cause. So
have you investigated any hospitals?
I've not personally investigated hospitals, but I've had experiences in hospitals.
Like
being a patient in a hospital is never a fun time. And I've never had anxiety a day in my life, but during one hospital visit, I was just there for a couple of days, and I heard whispering in my room. My hospital door was closed. It was at night. I had the TV on, and I turned the TV off because I thought maybe the nurses were whispering, and nobody was in my room. I called the nurse. She was all the way down the hall. Nobody else was around me. The room next to me was empty. And I told her, I said, I hear whispering. Like, where is that coming from? She's like, well, I don't hear anything. And then it happened again about an hour or two later. I heard whispering. And I thought it was very strange. I was in the hospital having my son. And I thought that was kind of bizarre. And then in the hospital, in the emergency room with my mom one time, I felt, not in a weird way, but I felt somebody touch my backside. And there was no nurses, no doctors, nobody around. So I can't explain how that happened. But I think, Nicole, you investigated that hospital in LA, right?
Yeah, iconic Linda Vista Hospital. Yeah, I did a couple investigations there. The experience there is off the charts. I mean, yeah, there was a doctor that was, I guess, because this hospital served a lot of the gang member community. So there was a doctor there that ended up passing away by gunshot wounds. And so he's one of the like main energies there at the hospital. But yeah, I mean, there's we were down in the operating room area one night, and we were hearing disembodied sounds of a young girl, shadow figures, cold spots. People have been touched there. People have even had markings on their back. I don't know if they're scratches per se or just markings. Really interesting experience. But I actually in the hospital, I've worked in a couple of hospitals, and there was a woman that was passing away the night before when I was there, and then the next morning when I got to the hospital in the morning, there was kind of like a commotion by her bed, and so I went in, and she was in the process of transitioning right then and there. So I was in the room when she passed, and the nurses had to check her pulse and her breathing and all that, and declared her deceased. And then when I was in there, I and this was more or less a personal experience, I felt the energy completely lift. The room almost got lighter. The woman's look to her face had more of like a peaceful look after about a couple of minutes. And like I said, the room just got really peaceful and really light. And then I didn't see her like with my eyes. I saw her with my mind's eye, almost in spirit form. And she was wearing like bright colors. She looked younger, and she just stood there and was just smiling at me. And I forgot to mention that the night before, she was in a lot of pain. She was moaning, and the nurse on staff was kind of oblivious to her. And here I was there as a volunteer, and I was thinking to myself, this nurse should be paying a little bit more attention to this woman. Like, my God, what's going on? So I went in there and spent some time with her. So I think maybe she remembered that. I mean, I'd like to think that, but yeah, it was a really, really beautiful experience. So,
Nicole, I want you to talk about the Queen Mary.
Oh my gosh, we only have 10 minutes. We only have 10 minutes. Queen Mary. Oh my goodness. Have you been, first and foremost? Have you visited the ship?
I have not. I'd love to do the show there from one of these.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Yes, that'd be amazing. Allie and I spent the night there a few years ago and did some investigating, but it's one of those locations where I was first introduced to it in the year 2000, and so I was here on spring break, and so there's a Carnival cruise port right next door, so I was jumping on a 3-day cruise on Carnival, and that's when I first saw the ship. And I remember thinking to myself, my goodness, that's such an old, beautiful ship. Okay, I'll be back one day. And so that day came in 2005, and I remember walking on board on A deck. That's where one of the hotel check-in area is. And it was an instant connection. It's so hard to explain this in words. I instantly fell in love with the ship. I felt like I'd been there before. It was like kind of like a soul connection. And a lot of people may think I'm nuts, but I do, because I've spent many hours there. I've been investigating it for several years, and I've done historical research. I've written 3 books on the ship. So it's a passion of mine. It's like my second home. And when I first stepped on board, I just felt, like I said, this soul connection. And I do think that the ship, they say that all ships have souls. I get that. But there's something about the Queen Mary. I think it's very alive. It has feelings. It has thoughts. It has a conscience. And I'm not talking about the people that run it. I'm talking about the ship itself. So I think in and of itself, she's one big, gigantic spirit, but she's a beacon for the spirit world. It's like she's, how like cities and states have welcome centers. I feel like she's a welcome center for ethereal energies, and some come and pass on by and choose to leave, and then others stay. But there's several resident energies there. The late Peter James, who was the resident psychic there, he once said, oh yeah, there's about 600 or more resident energies here, and I wouldn't doubt it. But pretty much any paranormal experience that you can imagine, you can have on the Queen Mary. I've pretty much all my senses have experienced anomalous phenomena on there. Allie, what would you have to say about it? Because I remember that.
The minute you step on board, it's electric. Alive is a good way to describe it. The minute you step on board, you just feel the heart and soul of the Queen Mary. I've only been fortunate enough to be there once, and I, like Nicole, wow, it was just it blew me away. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's just it holds a special place in my heart. So I know some people have suggested maybe I've had past lives aboard. I don't know. It's just there's just something really beautiful about it. And in my research, I've interviewed former crew and passengers and war brides and veterans, and them too. Many of these former people that sailed on the vessel describe the same sort of connection to the ship. So I think it's common with many people. So it's awesome. Come down and visit her.
Well, ladies, it's been so awesome having you on the program. I'm glad we could do it on Halloween. Nicole, I'm sorry we couldn't see you at the Oregon Ghost Conference this year. That was kind of a bummer.
I know. Hopefully,
I'm wearing my Oregon. By the way, I'm wearing my Oregon Ghost Conference T-shirt tonight. Just put it up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So make sure you like and share and do all that things, friends. Happy Halloween!
That's such an amazing conference. Oh my goodness! Allie, you got to go with me one year. It's awesome.
No, I was hoping to go, and then all of a sudden, we couldn't. So, darn it.
Shooting for 2021. Let's shoot for that.
Yes.
And things have to get better, right? Well, we were talking earlier. We were talking on the Fringe Fest earlier today. Over at the Fringe FM was hosting this digital conference, and I was chuckling with my friend, Clyde Lewis, in our presentation about the thought of getting pummeled by a solar flare. And why not? It's 2020, so
right?
If it's going to happen, why not happen this year? So stranger things have happened. Well, ladies, any closing comments here? Final wishes for the audience? Good things like that?
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, and thank you so much for having us on. It was really an honor.
I just hope everybody can sleep well after, a program kind of like tonight.
I know, right? And then all the candy too. Oh my gosh, I've been having so many sweets today. It's
Well, we all get the extra hour tonight.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
There is a God as far as that's concerned.
There's hope. Yeah.
It's very rare that you can gain back time, precious hours of your life. So, yes, we will fall back here in just a matter of hours. I think actually 4 hours from now is the official time switch. here in my local area. I think an hour from now for those of you in the East Coast, and then do the math for everywhere else in between. So thank you again to both Nicole and to Allie. Awesome program tonight, and I wish you both the best, and hopefully we can see you in person one of these days along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy.
Absolutely. Likewise, friends. Well, I hope you will be able to sleep well, and we'll just have to do this again next year. The Dead Air broadcast. I think this will be our yearly tradition, not necessarily always on Halloween night. Of all the programs I've done, this is the first time this program has ever fallen on Saturday night. I mean, I just thought about it like in the last couple of weeks as we were getting ready to put this all together, and so here we are. Good night, friends. From the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest, night-night.